So I have now started to record. Now this means that your audio, video sharing, whatever you do, you speak, you show your face, you show your screen, that will become publicly visible. That's the caution. With that in place, let us proceed. Now you should see that red button, by the way. So this is the state law in Washington that requires people who are participating in a video audio call to tell them that, hey, we are recording it. Otherwise, that's not appropriate. But I don't know. I don't understand the law part, but I just did because that's what my attorney told me to do. So I did that. Okay, move on. So in that exercise, our module number 8 is what we're talking about, right? Mod 8. That's what we're talking about. What we did, and what some of you actually succeeded in doing, and what we will do today, the remainder of the time, is we'll take some application, a famous one called WordPress.org. That app, the source code, we'll take that source, and then we'll identify its requirements, and then we will configure some machine infrastructure in some cloud and put all the layers needed to make it happen, and then take the source code, run it on top here. It might have some requirements like a database or some other things and language and something else. Whatever it needs, we'll just make it happen, and then at the end we'll have the application running. That's the goal. So you succeeded. That is good. And you did that on some random cloud, on some little box. Call it box, call it instance, call it droplet. These words, like they basically mean the same thing, more or less. It's the box, the machine. So yeah, that's what you're running it on, and that is great. But it is not how real life is. I should caution all of you that this is not how real life is. Not everybody runs it like this. In real life, in larger applications, they are run. Let me get a different screen here. Hold on. They are run like my favorite illustration from the last time. I'm just bringing it up again, and I'm going to erase some of these guys. And so they're more or less run in real life with multiple things, not just one box, right? You will have a load balancer. You will have some multiple instances. And so I'm not scaring you and basically saying you do all these things right away right now, but I'm building the problem one step at a time with a very simple separation that I want to do. The separation that I intend for those people who have already completed the exercise, I'm talking about only those, is what you need to do next is think. Think about certain things that I'm going to describe right now. So what you have in completed is something that you see here, like this one, that little thing here. In that one little box, maybe it's a big box, I don't care the size of the box, but in that one box, you have everything, like the Linux OS, you have Apache, you have Apache, you have PHP.
Hey, Nilesh?
Yes, yes, go ahead, Rebecca.
Nothing. I'm sorry. Never mind. I'm sorry. I interrupt you.
No, no worries. It's okay to ask a question anytime you feel like. So the application that you have already completed is that it has all these LAMP stack requirements, and then you have the application itself also running, and all of that is on one box. This one is not the best solution, right? So we want to think about a core concept, and the concept is about separation of concerns. We are discussing this idea. This idea is to separate concerns. And I think those who have done, at least two of them are DBAs, so they already know this idea. Separation of concerns is that you want to run the app elements on this box here and the DB element on another box. Just the simple separation of concerns, separation of responsibility, and you're basically dividing the work. And this is how the next logical step is what I would like those of you who have finished this exercise to think about. What would it take to break it into two boxes? Like literally break it into two parts and run this segment on this box and the database segments on that box. Then think about it and actually end up with a result that will have two boxes running, and then your app, your L, A, and P runs here, and your Linux and MySQL runs here. These guys, two of them will run on this box. and the LAP, Linux, Apache, PHP, they run here. And then this app connects to the DB. And then this user, they will visit the site on the app server, and they will be happy about seeing the app running. So that's how you should think about what would it take, what would you change in this exercise, this long one, to make sure that you end up with a result with not just one box containing LAMP and WordPress on top. No, not this. That's what I will do today. We'll finish that. But those who have done it already, for them, I would like you to not do it this way now. Make it interesting, make it a little bit difficult, little bit real life. Real life, you will have LAP with WordPress. And I hope you know what I mean by LAP and LM with MySQL. And so that runs your MySQL database, MySQL DB. So your DB will run on this box containing Linux and MySQL, those elements, and then it will have this application running on Linux and Apache and PHP, and these things will run on another box, and the box will configure like this. So you have to worry about the port number 3306 here, like here, for the MySQL access. So you have to basically think about what is needed to make it happen, and make it happen, and show off. Show off your work in this chat, and just you can do it on your own since you've already done the exercise. So that's the one simple step. Break the thing into two parts. Run one here on box number one, run another part in the box number two, and connect them together and still make it work. So that's one simple exercise. If you succeed that, I have more complex things to go along. We'll keep going until you feel tired or exhausted or bored, either way. So that's the thing for those who have already done this work. So please think in the direction of breaking the app into two parts and make it work, like for real. I'm not kidding. You can do it. I'll drop some hints now. The hint is right here. Not here. Hold on. Okay, here. Module 8, Unit 8. That's the hint. And I'll take it from there. I'll leave it for you. You read Module 8, Unit 8, and that's a hint for you guys to what I suggested. You have to break it into two parts and get two different boxes. Those two boxes will basically deal with the function that I described to you just now, which is separation of responsibility, like this application on one box, database on another, make it talk, make users visit this location so users are happy and the application works. That's what I would like to see in an end product, in an end result. So think in that direction and don't get bogged down with what I am talking, because I am probably talking like basics for you. So having said, let us now get back on track. What we were doing the last time, I will go to that point. And in the last time, I think I created, what did I do? Sysadmin user, I remember doing that. Then I created an encryption key, I think.
Hey Nilesh, you have to start from specifying the roles for the machines.
Okay, can you give me a link to where do you want me to start? I can start there, no problem. You give me a link, where do you want me to start? And I'll begin from there.
Okay.
And for those guys who already completed this particular exercise, if there are any questions, please go ahead, ask them either now or as you go along. You're totally okay to ask them if you need something. Now here we have this pointer, and that's what we want to begin from, which is okay. So it's like a step back, but no worries. We are on module 8, specify role for the machine you just created. Okay. Is this beyond, or did we cover this in the past? I think that's the question. I think we did not. I am guessing we did not, but let me just...
At least you're recording.
Sorry, Deepak? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you can check the recording. I think you were in the previous step.
So you think I was at the last time when we were about to? I don't think we created a machine the last time, did we? I don't think we did. I think
Okay, you
I
did. Yeah, I
remember. No,
did actually.
you may have done it. So hold
Yeah,
on.
we were at unit 12.
Unit 12.
We stopped
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
We stopped
So
at unit 11, and we were at unit 12. And Nilesh, everything is gone. Like whatever I have completed is kind of erased out. So my whole thing is 0%. I don't know what happened.
I think what you're talking is not about your virtual machine, but about your mark completed thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a separate issue. I think something went wrong in the site. So I have asked somebody else to look at the problem in India. Then they're going to find out what's going on. But in the meanwhile, it should not block you from what you're doing.
Yeah, I proceeded.
Right.
That's fine. Okay.
So that's a separate issue. It's about you marking sessions complete or not. So we'll discuss that later. That should not block you from actually doing what you're doing.
It blocked me because I was trying to catch up on the text section, and the text section is completely vanished. I can't even access it.
I understand. So right now, I would like you to focus on the DevOps section, not the tech, and let us stay focused on what we are. I recall the last time we did the sysadmin user completed. I think we can quickly check that actually by visiting the Chef server, because it will tell me what did I do the last time by just looking at the status of the Chef server or just looking at history. How about that? History command is a command that shows the last action I did. So I committed data bags and then I created a cookbook for your SQL. That's what I was doing. I remember now. So that's the last action we did in the machine, in which we were creating. Where is the cookbook creation step? Yeah, there. Unit 11, which is where we created a custom cookbook for us. So we did this part. I will just quickly recap what we did that day. What we did was I'm going to open Atom Editor here. And in the editor, I will see our custom cookbook that we made for ourselves. And that cookbook kind of where did it go? Wrong location. So I should go to the Chef repo folder and open Atom in that location instead of outside. And then it will show me the exact thing what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this Your SQL cookbook with a recipe that I modified and added these details, which basically put an override on the server root password, which is what we are primarily interested in right now. It also overrides other things, like two other things. That is what we chose to override with what we want to actually have in our MySQL database. The password we like to have is 123. And that's what we have put in a data bag. The data bag is up with the Chef server. And our custom created cookbook is also with the Chef server. If you can go check with the Chef server, I should see that if I sign in, I should see that custom cookbook showing up. Your SQL cookbook should pop up right there. So if you go to policy and cookbooks and look for your SQL cookbook, it is there. So that is what I wanted to see that we have. So that was what we did the last time, which is what we show up in this section. So that was the last entry, which this was the last step. We were at this the last time. So now proceeding forward. To proceed forward, what I need to do is click next and understand that we need to provide our keys to the cloud providers. Now, our key as in this ID RSA that we have here. So we have this SSH folder and then ID underscore RSA.pub. That key needs to be with the cloud provider that we intend to use. And right now, our intention is to use DigitalOcean Cloud. And before I proceed any further, I should tell myself that I have deleted the token for security reasons, which means my token that I have from the last time is bad. It's gone. It's deleted. It doesn't exist. So I had to basically, for security, I destroyed my token. So I need to generate one more token right now, which I will do again, and then take this token And this is a deviation. This is not necessary for any of you. It is just that I expose my token publicly, that I had to go and delete it. Otherwise, the recordings can be visible and people can just use the token and exploit. That's not what I want. So I need to create a new token, which I did. And copying that token, going back to my chef knife RB and removing the old token from there in line number 19. That was the old token. I don't want it because it is deleted. I need to put my new token in place like this. And now I have the new token in place, which means that should be saved. And I should close out of knife RB and close out on back to terminal. In here, I should quickly check connection to DigitalOcean Cloud, bundle, exec, knife, DigitalOcean, droplet, list, and see if it gives me blank. And it did, which means my connection established to the cloud. This connection is not to one machine. So the connection that we are doing, like this one, this looking at droplet list, looking at server list, this is not connecting to a machine. It is connecting to the cloud DO in general. There will be droplets in here and droplets in here like this. And for each droplet, there is a separate method of connection called SSH. The knife DigitalOcean droplet lists connects to the cloud level. It's the administration layer, the admin layer. The actual machine access happens using SSH. And that goes to a machine, one or more. Whereas these general purpose tools like Knife, you're operating straight on the cloud, not on one droplet or more droplets, but on the cloud itself. So you're operating right on the cloud saying, give me my list of all the droplets I have, and it gives you a list of all your droplets, which is nothing, and that's okay. But you're not connecting to any one droplet. It is going to give you a list of droplets. That was a question that somebody had, I think Deepak had, is when I say bundle, exec, knife, EC2, server, list, and it should fail for me, just for me, this should fail. I think it will fail because I have disabled my key for security reasons, which means I should go back to Amazon console and look at my security settings and make sure that I enable them. So security credentials, enabling it temporarily right now like this and saying, okay, make it active. And then back here, I should run that same command again and it should work. And it did. And so now I can see that my EC2 connection is also successful, and I get a list of all the servers I have running in the Amazon cloud in the region that I chose. And the region I have chosen is Oregon. And in Oregon, I have one machine. So it shows me that machine running, and I'm happy to see that. However, this connection, Knife, is connecting to the cloud, not to a box. This is a box. This is the IP address. And by the way, a reference about the discussion I just had before, which is using two boxes, DB and application. So separation. And I don't seem to be doing that myself. What's up with that? Is that not a question? Is that not a question like when you can say you're running the Cloud Genius website on a single box? What's going on? Isn't that a valid question? Or do you want to ask that question and challenge me? You just told us this real life thing, application and database should be separate. Why are you not doing it, dear? That should be the question that you should have asked, but you did not. So I would like you to ask that at some time and challenge me. Why are you doing it like this? And I will give you the answer for that, but not right now. So let's keep going. So what I want to do is our cloud provider needs to have access to your keys. And this is a problem that you will run into if you do not have your latest keys in the cloud. So your cloud should contain your ID RSA public key like this one should be made available to the cloud you intend to use. So I intend to use the DO cloud right now. So I need to get this public key, copy that, and then go to DO. And in there, go to somewhere in the security section, like here. In the security section, look for any keys that I might have. Apparently there is this key. I'll just try to add one more and say ID underscore RSA. I think I have the key already, but it'll tell me the key matches, and I'll just create and see what happens. It says the key is already in use in your account. That's good to know. That means the key already exists. So I don't need to worry about the key part, but I just checked that I do have the key. I will do the same thing on Amazon console, by the way. In Amazon console, what I would like to do is go to EC2 in the region I have chosen, which is Oregon region right there. This is Oregon region. And in that region, I would like to make sure that my key pair contains the ID RSA key. So I would like to import my key pair, call it ID underscore RSA, and paste the key and say import and see what happens. It tells me that the key already exists, which is very nice that I don't have to re-import again. But this is how you can check very, very quickly in a crude fashion. You can also check through the fingerprint. Having done these two steps, let's continue along, which is in this section, we need to make sure that our key is provided to the DO cloud, which we did. Next up, our cloud has the key, which means we need to get an identifier for that key. And in DigitalOcean Knife plugin implementation, the only way to get the identifier right now is this command. That's the only way. Yes, it is crazy, but that's what you have. So you run this command, and the only place that this number shows up, this number, is when you run this command. There is no other way to find it out. You can go to the cloud, and it will not show you what key identifier you have. They'll give you the fingerprint. Yeah, fingerprint is nice, but not the ID. This ID is not available to us, which is kind of crazy, but that's what we know, and so we have to live with that. Now, having done that part, I obtained the ID from here, and this is a question that many of you will have, is what do I do with this ID? And this ID is going to be used in the next step. So that is what is coming along, and you will see the ID number like this, and the number here in the previous instruction was 803301 is what I have. So that is what I need to show. This is an example. Your ID will be different. Take note of this ID you will receive, and that ID is going to be remembered. I need to remember that, and I will use it in a future step on the next page. Now, having done that part, I also need to clean up. This is a cleanup step. Some of you will do the exercise over and over again, and especially for DigitalOcean, if you do not do this particular step, it will hurt. It will hurt in that it will have a different machine with the same IP address from a previous attempt, and it will cause you to fail, saying SSH identity mismatch. And you're cleaning up the known host file basically in this step to take care of any potential issues in a second or third or a subsequent run of the same exercise. You're cleaning up known host files. Next up, what we are doing now is to construct a command like this. And in that command, we'll include whatever we want to be included in that particular command. So we'll go look at the command itself, which is, I'm going to open Atom Editor like this. And in the editor, I will paste the command. And the command is like this. Let us go look at the command one by one, line by line, and I will describe it. What are we doing essentially here is running a create command. We are basically running knife DigitalOcean droplet create. So it's a creation command. In the next line we have, which is we are giving it a name. This is the machine host name, server name, Abracadabra. You can give it whatever you want. It's really, really immaterial, but that's the name I chose, so I'll stick to that. In the image selection, we are choosing Ubuntu 14.04 64-bit. In the location, I'm choosing New York City number 2. In the size selection, I'm choosing the cheapest droplet you can get, which is $5 per month. You already have a $10 coupon, so it should not cause you any expense as such. -- bootstrap basically is an indication that please install Chef and please run Chef. So it's a combination of prepare and cook is bootstrap. That is line number 6. In line number 7, identity file is a reference to the IDRSA key file that we have already in the right location inside in our computer. This one, we already have it. However, the thing that is missing is line number 8. This number is broken. That is not the number it should be. It should be something different, not 833, whatever number. The number should be this one. That's the number I want to use. So I will like to copy that number, and instead of this 833, 8033, whatever it is, I'll just remove that and paste this. Now that completes the command that I want to actually execute. It's a multi-line command. So I'll take all that, copy, and then bring to my my terminal. In my terminal, what do you see is that I'm going to run that same command right here in this terminal, which is I'm going to basically paste. And when I paste and then execute it, you will see that DigitalOcean will create a new droplet. And right now I do not have any droplets. You can see that it says you do not have any droplets. So when I execute this command, it will go use the token that I have put in the naive here, that token, and then execute the create command on the cloud. DigitalOcean create a droplet. And it does. When it does, you will have to take the operating system in that location, this size, and bootstrap using the identity file. The corresponding key ID number is already matching from a previous step that you know. So what this will do, as you will see when I invoke, is it will go and build out a machine. And what is missing in this command is the actual role references, as you will notice in a subsequent step. We still have to go and understand how Chef runs. So what this command will basically do, it will tell us that the run list is empty and it will do nothing. It will just create the droplet and come back. Let's go. Hit. So I hit it. And on the other side, it should show me a new droplet getting created in the left half. But on the right half, I already see that it did. So this thing is not updating by itself. So I'm going to refresh and it should show me my droplet. And this abracadabra is getting created. As you can see, it's getting created and it's ready now. So ready, as in I think it is ready, but maybe not. So I'll let it do its thing. It is waiting for secure shell. And once that SSHD succeeds with this IP address, that's what you see here matching. So that's the machine we have. And this SSHD access will succeed once the machine gets fully ready. And when the machine gets ready, it will get installed with Chef. And that's what's happening right now. And then it will find that the run list is empty. And so it will do nothing. The run list was empty. So it did gladly nothing. And it finished doing nothing in 2 seconds. How nice. So it did nothing for us. Great. But at least we have a machine, which means we should be able to, by the way, it did exactly what we told it to. And so that's what we wanted to happen. So now that the machine is created and this other step is optional, we'll do it in the other cloud in the next attempt. So this other cloud, Amazon, basically you configure the command depending on the gem documentation. So like, this command structure is kind of sort of different from the DigitalOcean command structure. You can see this is different from that. And for every cloud, they will have some differences, slight differences in terms of how the gem is implemented, in terms of how the cloud APIs are implemented. They will have different characteristics, such as this user requirement is Ubuntu here, the user requirement is root here in DigitalOcean. The AMI ID reference comes along in Amazon, whereas in here, the AMI reference is not there, but an OS name is available. Here, certain things, the size T2 micro, here we say 512 MB, the different way of referring the size of the machine. And that's subtle differences. The key, we are using the same key here as well as here. And that's what you're looking at. So subtle differences exist, like the bootstrap step is implied, it's assumed taken for granted in the EC2 plugin for Knife, whereas in DigitalOcean plugin, it is not taken for granted. You have to call it out like this. And so it basically depends on the plugin authors. So we look at this plugin, which is the EC2 gem, Knife EC2 gem. This is written by these people, these 68 contributors. And the other plugin is written by a different set of people. So they have some differences in the way they operate, the way they think, and the way they document. And so that's what you see in a final result. So you will see Knife DigitalOcean. Let us see if the link actually works. Yes, it did. So this guy, Roland Moritz, he created that gem for DigitalOcean. He is a person just like you or me, basically creating on your own time, spending time to build something that makes it interesting for him, and open sourced it. Now he has 18 contributors. And in this, you will find that these people are getting together to build what is this particular gem called Knife DigitalOcean. And there are people sending pull requests, and you can see that in I think in the past, I think I also have and yeah, I think I sent a pull request to these guys and they accepted it. That was like a couple of years ago, so I don't remember exactly which one. Then one of my previous class students actually sent a pull request to these guys and they accepted it for a documentation change. So they are nice. They're looking at and listening for people's feedbacks and actually changing. And so here, I'll let you read the issues and how they are accepting pull requests for that gem. But bottom line that we are looking at is this succeeded in creating what we wanted. And next up, what we need to do is actually make it run what we want it to run. So, which means we need to go back and continue along our discussion that we are having, which is not just creating a machine. This creating is good, but then we need to actually do some chef runs. So the chef ran with nothing in it, and that is kind of boring. So let us go do some interesting things, which is...
Nilesh, quick question on the topic. Is there a way to specify a server name for the EC2? Just like you did for digital cloud?
Yes, let's go find out. The best way to answer that, I think not, but let's go check. So the best way to do that is go look at the GitHub repository for Knife EC2 and read the documentation. That's the best way that's the best answer you can get. So configuration options, in your name, you have to look for the variable name, and let us see if it actually lets you define. And answer is no, because I think Amazon generates an instance ID by itself, and that's what it calls a name. So if you go to Amazon console, you will find that it has this thing called an instance ID, like here, it'll come up right there, instance ID. And this instance ID is the name of the machine. That's how Amazon refers their machines. Whereas in DigitalOcean, the naming depends, the host name depends on you. You basically do it. So let's go look at DigitalOcean, and the naming happens to be your configuration. So the abracadabra, you decide what you want. They'll give you an IP address and other details about it. So that's how the differences are in the two clouds. These guys give you a name. By the way, this name is only like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 characters long plus I dash. So I dash plus 8 characters long, and there is a notification from Amazon saying that we are transitioning IDs to a longer format, which means it will be like not the identifier followed by 8 character string, but the new format is going to be 17 character string. And you have until December to opt in to the longer format. If you do not take any action, it will automatically be updated to the 17 character string format. So at that time, once this happens in December, some 2000, whatever, 18, 16, yeah. So this number will change to a 17 character sequence. But that's how Amazon names it. The difference between naming of how the machine references are is what you see in the gem implementation. And that's what you just found out. That's what I just told you about in response to your question. Now, having done that, let us assign some purpose in life to this box. in this box, there is no purpose. The purpose is empty. So I'm going to give it a purpose in life, the role I want it to play. And so the role would be that I would like to actually have these roles assigned, like these guys. I would like that box to grow up to become a database master as well as a database server. I want it to become both. So I need to assign those roles to the box, abracadabra. And that is what I'm doing right now, right here. So I'm basically taking this command and read it. So when I read it, I will try to understand what it is doing. It says bundle exec, knife, node, run list, add to abracadabra, that. So please add the role base to the node abracadabra in its run list. That's what this command is basically telling you in English language. So if you run it, you will find that in your manage.chef.io, you have a node, by the way, there. So right there, you have a node now. So the node show up, abracadabra. And this Ubuntu abracadabra IP address and whatever that detail shows up. Now, if you look at that node in greater detail, you will find that the run list, if you expand it all, it is empty. I mean, there is nothing in it. And that's why it did nothing when the box came up. This droplet came up, it did nothing. So we are going to assign purpose in life, some role in life. That's one of the roles I would like to assign. And I'll say enter. So it will go to the Chef server and update the purpose in life for that box. This is abracadabra. And its purpose in life has been updated just now. So we'll go refresh the page and you see that its purpose in life has been expanded to include the base role. And it in turn includes a bunch of different cookbooks and references. So it will take on that role automatically once we run Chef, because it has a new purpose in life called take on the base role, please. Yes, sir. That's what it will do. So that's what we just did here. Back in the other two steps, I'm going to give it two more purposes. Do two more things, please, not just the base. Base is not interesting in itself. So add one more role, DB master role, and then the web server role. So we are adding these two roles. And remember, you have to add the DB master role before the web server. And also for those 2 people, 3 people that are rushing ahead with the next step, remember that you need to have your DB boxes up and running before you start the web server. Otherwise it will fail. So that dependency has to be in this order. You need to get the database ready and then bring your application up. Otherwise application will fail, saying database not found. And that's not what you want. So make sure when you invoke a separate box just for the database, that you make sure that the box is up and running before you invoke the other box, or at least before you invoke the application server on the other box. So that's a caution for those people who are rushing ahead. Next one, in this 3 roles that we have assigned, if you carefully look at the Chef manage, which is the Chef server, I'm going to refresh it one more time. You will see that it is showing you the 3 roles in life. Those are the base role, the DB master role, and the web server role. Those 3 roles are clear. However, the environment is default. And I want to change the environment to production. I will do that in the next step, like here. In the next step, what I'm going to do is set that node in production environment, basically marking it ready to go live. And so that command, if you read that very carefully, it will do exactly what I'm describing, which is bundle exec, knife, node, environment, set production to this node, abracadabra, set production environment. So set production environment. on the abracadabra node. That's how it is read in English. And you hit it, and it will set the node in production environment and mark the chef environment for that as prod. That's what we wanted, so that the machine gets set in production environment. Now we just check the status of the node itself. You can say bundle exec, show me what's going on with the node. It will show you that the node is abracadabra. Its fully qualified domain name is abracadabra. It's not fully qualified actually, but yeah, that's the name. So it is not a DNS name. IP address, we have it. In the run list, now we have the base role followed by the DB master role followed by the web server role. Remember, the DB master role is run before the other role. For a simple reason, if you do it the other way around, this will fail. You don't want it to fail. And I have just included the run list, these roles directly in the run list, which is one way of doing it. You can also have roles in the role description also. That's also a possibility. If you want to run specific recipes, you can run them right here. But we are just putting them all in a one long run list containing multiple roles, and that is also okay. The platform happens to be Ubuntu, and the tags are blank, no tags, which is understood. So that's how our node is currently. Yes, go ahead.
Question. So we have a role, a base, DB master, and web server. You want to split this out into a 3-tier architecture. How many bases do you need? Does each environment get a base, or is there only one base?
Everybody has a base role. Everybody, every box has to have this. This is like, okay, do you want to come to the office? Please shower. It's like hygiene.
Okay, so each one, database, web server, app server, each one would have a base with it.
Right. Everybody who comes to the office needs to shower. Everybody needs to get the base role.
Okay.
Yeah, if you remember, the base role itself is like, okay, install Git, install updates, basically, VI, those things, right? That's what we have in a base role. If you go back, look at the role itself, that's what you will find. Right?
Sounds good.
Okay. So proceeding forward, what we are going to look at is the next step, which is we are going to run chef on the target box itself, right on this droplet, this one. I want to run chef right on the box. So I will do that. It's very simple now that we have a chef server, so we don't have to run a long command and everything. All we need to do is somehow get into the box and then run chef client in escalated privilege, elevation of privilege sudo. So we'll do that sudo chef client once we get into the box. Now, how do we get into the box that we have? We'll say SSH and then root at IP address for the box that we have. And you can pass along this -i option for your key pair like this, IDRSA private key. You pass it along in the command, and then it should let you in. And it did. So we are now connected to the droplet right there in the DigitalOcean cloud. Now, having done that, let us see. We are connected to the box. This is root at abracadabra. This is not your Cloud Genius workstation. This is abracadabra, that box there, out there in the cloud, here in DigitalOcean. Now, what we want to do is run chef. How do you run it? Very simple. Like this. Just say sudo chef client. And the magical thing is it already knows what chef server you have, what roles you want the box to take on, and every other thing needed. So it will just happen. Happen as in, let us see what happens. So we'll play. So we'll play chef on the box and let it run and watch it. It already has it installed. So what it is going to do is, it is resolving the books for the run list, expanded the run list now into all these other ingredients that we had for that book. And then it needs the cookbooks, so it gets the cookbooks down from the chef server. It's compiling them. And then it is running apt-get update right now, installing the base role, basically, and executed apt-get update, then installing action, installing Git, which is what we wanted in the base role, and some other things like Bison, bin utils doc. These are build essentials coming up. So installing build dependencies in the base role that we have defined, and that is what you're looking at. So it will do everything that we wanted up until now, all in one shot. You'll see it step by step happening as you proceed, because we crafted it the way we wanted it. We defined what we want, and it is doing the way we want it. So at the end, we should see what we have, and we will see whether we get what we wanted or not. And so we'll examine that live. And so as you will see, the next thing is it is doing some other installation like get text. And by the way, it finished that part. It is taking on the sysadmin role. Now it is installing MySQL Server right now. And you can see that it will take on the 123 password momentarily as soon as we reach that point. By the way, here it is created the user called user created. And this is the sysadmin user we wanted to create. Then next up, it is doing the MySQL Server install action. And then we see that it is setting up the password 123. How nice. It is grabbing that password from that encrypted data bag, which is sitting on the Chef server, and proceeding along and setting up MySQL configuration. That part is automatically done for us. So let us proceed forward. Then it is installing the PHP MySQL connector. Oops, it ran too fast for me. I could not catch it. Now it is installing libapache mod PHP 5, and then it basically reloads Apache. So it must have installed Apache up ahead early on. And then it is saying that it running handlers complete. And it tells us that some deprecated features are used, meaning the way we are using is old way of doing things. It doesn't mean an error. This is not an error. This is something that it will be removed in the next version of Chef. So deprecation in 13. Right now we are using Chef 12. So in Chef 13, something will become an error. So this thing will become an error, and we have to go look at that at that time. We don't have to worry about it right now at the very moment. So this is not an error. It is just a deprecation warning that we are going to change the behavior. So get ready, get your act together for future at some point before you adopt Chef 13. And if you don't want to adopt Chef 13, it's okay. You can just stay with Chef 12. If you don't want to go 13, that's okay, because we control it in our gem file. You remember that, right? So it has finished installing. It took us 2 minutes and 19 seconds. But now what? What do we really have now? So that's what I want to find out. What did we get when we did this? And so while we are on the box, in the Abracadabra box, what I intend to do is to see if it succeeded in what we wanted to have on the box. So we set up LAMP stack, right? This is Unix. So let us go find out which version of Linux we have. It tells us we have, this kernel version 3.13. So Linux part is taken care of. Okay, let us see Apache. Do we have Apache installed here? Oh, yes, we do. How about PHP? Do we have PHP? Yes, we do. What about MySQL? That is also there, which is goodness. But can we connect to the MySQL server ourselves using the password that we have put in our encrypted data bag in the Chef server right here on this box? Can we actually get it to work? Connecting to the database box like this with the user root, with the password, enter the password, and I'm going to type 123. You know the password, right? 123. That's what I just typed. You did not see it, but I typed 123, and then I'm going to hit enter. And I'm expecting, it let me in. So I expected to connect to the MySQL database, and I am inside the database. This is an open source database, by the way. It is a trademark of Oracle. Oh, no, MySQL is, I don't know, forget the trademark business, but yeah, just remember that this is an open source product. It is managed by Oracle. So that's the database we are using. We are connected to it successfully. Now we can come out of it by typing /c, or rather q/q like this, or Control D. One of those two will work. Help, you can see the help about how to use the MySQL server, and some of you are DBAs, so you can tell me how to use databases more than I can tell you. So I understand that. Now, having said, this is just a database. You already know database structures, at least some of you. And the idea is to store any data that changes on an application, stored in the database. If it's a structured data, you store it in the database. If it is a file, you store it in something like S3 or some other object storage somewhere outside. And that's how you basically use a database in a given application. So that's a common dominant usage scenario for a database. Now, having discussed this, our infrastructure configuration has succeeded, which means I need to come out of the database prompt. This prompt is MySQL prompt. I don't want it right now. I'm done with it. So I need to type /q and come out. It says bye. And now I'm outside of the MySQL connection. I'm back to my Abracadabra. And here, I'm still want to come out of the box Abracadabra all together. So I'll say Control D one more time. You can type exit also, EXIT. And it will bring you back to your Cloud Genius workstation in your Chef repo. And that's how you come back, check. And that's, I think, the next step. We just did that whole thing by without reading it, but that's what you're looking at. We check the Apache version, we check the PHP version, we check the MySQL version, and MySQL connection also. All of these guys succeeded for us, which is awesome. Imagine doing that by hand. So now you have the thing in a Chef repo, right? Keep your repo in a Git commit, like git add and then git commit. And off we go. So we have now a state in our Git repository, like Git status is clean, and our Git log shows what we have done up until now by step. We did this, followed by that, followed by that, followed by that. We have a deployment of LambStack done. So LambStack is great. And you have the LAMP and all that good stuff. But what do you do with it? Like, this is just a box, and you can connect to Linux and see Apache's running and all that. But can you actually do something meaningful out of it as is without running an application? Not really. You have to, you can copy this and open up in a browser and see what happens. It will tell you that, there is a Apache server running. There we go. But then what's the point? Yeah, you can see the Ubuntu default page and everything. And this is the Apache server running, but that's not interesting to me. I mean, yeah, default, whatever. I don't care. But that's what you're getting at, is you deployed the LambStack. That is just the dependency that this application that we intend to use has. This application, WordPress, it has, the documentation says that you need to have requirements. You need to have these guys. So PHP, MySQL, and the mod rewrite Apache module. These things are needed. So we have them. Now, to make something really useful, something meaningful to a user, we need to deploy an application. So we'll take that application and deploy it, but then not manually, but the Chef way. So that's what we intend to do next, which means we'll go back to our write-up and follow along. Next one. So we want to see it live. And first step, I want to just make sure that all of us get it, is that this example that we have is not the Chef way of doing it, but the subsequent one is. So this one that you're looking at on this page is not how it's done in Chef. This is not Chef. What we are really looking at are some scripts that I have written down already that sets up a database. So let's go look at the script itself. The script looks like this. Hold on, let me open it. The script looks like this. And this script is not, Chef. It is not Ruby. It is a shell script. Actually, it's a database invocation of database script. This creates a data structure with a username and password and all that, so that the application can connect to the right host. And by the way, those of us who are doing it on a different box, putting a database on a different box, this host has to be not localhost. This has to be the other box, not localhost. Otherwise, it will not connect. You will assume that your database is local, but it is not. So remember that piece. Similarly, the other script here is a shell script. I'm going to open that. And this script is a little bit smaller, simpler. And let us see if we can open it here. And that script is also on GitHub. And this script is a little bit smaller. And what it does, it downloads WordPress application, expands it, removes the tarball, puts that in the right folder, and changes the ownership to the user that runs the Apache application itself, Apache server application itself, to www-data, and then done. That's what this thing does, is basically gets the app downloaded from WordPress.org, puts in the right spot, changes the permissions, and say bye-bye. So that's what this script does. So these two scripts will basically help us get to the point where we want to go, but then that is not idempotent. And that is not the Chef way. So in idempotency, you know this thing, idempotent. We would like things to be running multiple times over and over, and do it the way so that if you keep running the same thing over and over, it should always get you the same outcome. And that's the illustration that I will be doing next. Is the commands that we are running right now here are not idempotent. However, the subsequent ones that are based on these ones are idempotent. But before we go into idempotency,
Nilesh,
yes.
real quick. When you replace localhost with the server name, is there a way you can pass the server name that you've generated into that script? You should be able to, right?
Yes. That's a challenge exercise. I have been leaving it for you.
Sorry.
Yes, figure it out. Yes. So you have an app box and you have a DB box, and so before you jump to the challenge, just do it manually, figure it out how to do it by hand, and then automate it. So the way connection has to be established is like this. There's this box and there's that box. So you want to make the connection happen. First, do it manually first, and then jump to automation.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. So, so let us do this. We will take that line, and this will basically download the script. So we'll take that script, bring it down locally here, and then run that script. Right, this needs to run in that remote machine, not on this box. So don't run it here. There's no point running it here, right? We need to go back to the box. So I'm going to delete this thing from here, DB setup. We don't want to set up a DB on the workstation. No, we want to be there in that droplet. And in the droplet is where we want to actually run these things. So I will grab the database setup script. Boom. Now I have it there on the box, in the Abracadabra box, which has a database set up already, but it doesn't have the credentials that I would like to incorporate. And the credentials are included in the script, which is like a crude way of doing it. So here it is. We are going to run that script on the Abracadabra box right here, right now, this script, which is we downloaded from here. And we are going to run it like this. So that's the script being run. And it will finish really, really quickly. You have the script sitting right there, DB setup. You are going to run it like this. And it says, your MySQL batch job completed gracefully. Nice. It did it very quickly, and it finished right there. So this is a crude way of doing it, but it is kind of idempotent, and I'll show you what I mean by idempotency once we finish this. So next one, and there are always better ways of writing this thing. This is just one way. So there are always, it's like English language. You can always improve upon how you write. So that was the database setup correctly, which means our WordPress application can actually connect to the database. Next one is this second script, which is what we want to download now. Right now in our box, we have just one script. We have run it already. The next script, we want to bring it down. So now we have two scripts, and I want to run the second one, the WP, oops, go back. I want to run this script this time, the WP setup script right here, like this. And that's what I want to run. And remember, we are running in Abracadabra, not on the workstation. This is not the workstation. This is Abracadabra. And that is that box out there in the cloud. That's what we are running on, because that's where we want to run the application. That is where we want to run the database. That is what the database we just configured using this step. And that exact location is where we configured we will configure our application. So this run, when we run this particular script, that the second script that I am talking about, I'm going to open it up for you to read. This script basically downloads the thing like there, and then runs it and places it in the right spots. So let's go figure it out. Let it run. It is downloading. It finished, and it put the thing in the right location, which means we are kind of sort of done, except we want to open a browser and visit the IP address of that box, this Abracadabra box. I want to go there. I want to see whether actually we succeeded or not. But at this moment, we have actually succeeded in the application deployment end to end. We just finished that. How do we know? We just need to find out the IP address of the Abracadabra box, which happens to be right here, and open up a browser and new tab and paste the IP address and say go, and let's see how it actually works, or whether it works or not. We'll figure it out, but I'm just going to hit it, and you see that it is different from the default WordPress box that you saw, the dialog box, the initial default thing that you saw, Ubuntu default Apache page. That is gone because the script deleted it, and it installed WordPress on the right locations already. And it is prompting us to select a language of choice of the user. So I'm assuming that the user understands US English, and that is also the default. So I'll continue. And then it is saying, welcome to WordPress. WordPress, before getting started, we need some things. Like, what do we need? We need these 4 or 5 things. Database name, meaning you need to know the name of the database, because it expects a database. It expects that you will give it a database server with a database name and a database username. This database username is different from the machine username. The database password is different from the machine password. The machine doesn't even have a password because we are using keys. The database password in our case is 123. We also need to have a database host name, which in our example right now, in a single box, everything all in one, is localhost. It's the same box, the localhost. Take this box and do it. However, the other people, some of us are doing the advanced thing, and yes, we'll take a short break as soon as I finish this deployment of the application itself. So there's a break request. So table prefix, if you want to change it and more than one WordPress in a single database, you want to change the table prefix, you can do that. But we don't need to worry about this part right now. At some point, we'll think about it. So all these details, like 1, 2, 3, 4, we need to know them. And by the way, our script knows them, so it has taken care of that. And then all it says is that, you know what, let's go. So we'll go. And it pops up some default values for us. It says, you should enter the right database name, the right username, the right password, and the right database host, and the table prefix. And what I have done is I have written my script in such a fashion that it uses the default values already. So I have created a database name by the name WordPress. I have created a username for MySQL by the name username. And I have created a MySQL password account, not the root password, but a MySQL username password happens to be password. How nice and how complex and difficult. Password is the password. And then the database host is the local host, same box everything. And prefix, we are not changing anything. So all we need to do is submit. Don't need to change anything here because that's the script takes care of it already based on the same default that, or rather not so same, defaults provided already. So I'm going to submit and it will connect to the database. It tells us, all right, Sparky, you made it through this part. WordPress can now communicate with your database. If you're ready, time now to run the install. So click and you're done. And now here to choose the site title. We call it the cloud, or rather the Badal. How about that? Badal. Username happens to be Nilesh. Password is a very difficult one. I'm going to just choose whatever the password is. Actually, it's very difficult to choose. I'll go generate a new password. Here we go, password generator. That's a good one. So copy. And I'm going to use this password twice. And it's a very strong password. I'm going to put my email address and say, and this is something you should remember, privacy. Allow search engines to index this site. You know, if you're really doing for a real customer, I would say no, don't allow. And I'll tell you why. You can change that setting later once you're ready to show. This is basically putting clothes on your site. So if you don't, if you put the check mark, Google will come and search your site. It will see what you have and it will get exposed. But while you're under construction, you don't want to expose your site. So you don't want to allow search engines as you build new sites. Don't show it to Google. You want to hide from Google. So don't allow as you begin. Later on, you can come back and change the setting. Much better, much better. If you allow it right now, you will have ugly things as you half-baked work showing up on internet searches. You don't want that. And then you install. And we are done, practically done. We'll say login. And we need to come back here, type in the username, password, and off we go. And so now we have our site ready and functional. So that's what we did. And now we are going to take a quick break. Right now it is 7:12. We'll meet again at 7:17. I mean, we are not going anywhere. I'm just saying, meet at 7:17. Yes, you can talk anytime. I never say no to talking. You know, you're welcome to break me anytime and ask a question.
I was just going to say dinner was really good last night. So.
Oh yes, it was. It was awesome. And in fact, I have taken liberty of posting your guys' all y'all's pictures on Facebook and Twitter and everywhere. And let's see what the reaction has been. We have a couple of likes to a couple of posts here. This guy was a previous graduate. He now works at this company, ArcServe, and he saw that we have these happy people. Do you know any of these guys? But the food was there was the other dough thing. What was that dough? Something you said dough zone. You should go there.
Zone.
Yeah.
Dough zone, yeah.
You should go there. So
but at the I was near a Dough Zone restaurant. In fact, I went to one at lunch, and it was as packed as the restaurant we were in last night during the lunch.
As packed as that one?
Yes.
Wow.
And I kind of looked around and I said, I don't think so.
Yeah, let's see the ratings. The ratings are good.
Here's a tip. So there's a new one that opened in Redmond.
If
you go to the one in Crossroads, it's always jammed. at peak times. But if you go to the one in Redmond, the new one down in Redmond, behind the Dairy Queen,
Interesting. Okay.
it hasn't gotten super busy yet.
Okay. I will check that out.
Oh, so that's what it is. Okay.
Sorry?
I didn't know it was behind Dairy Queen in Redmond.
Yeah, they just opened it right
cool.
before Christmas, I think.
That's walking distance for me.
Well, that seems too good to pass up.
So this one is the Crossroads one, which we don't want to go to. And
Well, you can go to the Crossroads one, just go a little bit off peak. If you go at noon or
yeah,
6, it's going to be busy.
I see. Okay.
But
Good to
just
know.
a little off peak, and you're fine.
Yeah, makes sense. So see, the Cloud Genius is on the Google Map. Yeah, this location is the old location we used to have the classes there in Lake Washington campus. Okay. So it is near your Dairy Queen, somewhere in this area, I'm guessing, right? Somewhere in the Redmond area. So Dairy Queen. Let's figure out where Dairy Queen is.
Well, you can just search on Dozone. It's down there.
So I could not find Dozone's website.
I'm not sure they have a website.
The wrapper is thinner than Din Tai Fung and it has more soup. Okay. Xiaolong Bao is just a little bit less soupy than Din Tai Fung's. Xiaolong Bao is, I think the meaning is just a dumpling basket or something like that. That's the meaning, I think, if I remember right. Xiaolong Bao meaning. What am I typing? So Xiaolong Bao means small bamboo steaming basket. Okay. Xiaolong is a small bamboo steaming basket. And Bao means dumpling, I guess. Interesting. Cool. So yesterday, Patrick was asking me about Indian. So let's find out Indian ratings and rankings of Indian food. All filters by review. Is there a rating by review or something? Dozone address. Thank you. Thank you, Helen. How do you sort the Indian food in our area by ranking? Is there a way to sort on Yelp or somewhere? Maybe not. Maybe there is. Feature category. Hi, there we go. Highest rated. That's what I wanted to find out. Indian category. And highest rated. Let's go. Taste of India seems to be good. That's the recommendation people seem to have. So there it is for you, Patrick. Taste of India.
Yeah. I've never. Well, those are all in Seattle.
I know. Yeah.
Stay on the east side here.
I know. Me too. I don't go to Seattle much. But let's see if we go to more neighborhoods.
Type Guilt Trip or Redmond.
Guilt Trip. Okay.
Guilt Trip.
It's a movie. It's also a movie, I guess. Punjabi. Wow. Punjabi can be a different style. It's a North Indian style of eating as opposed to the other style, which is the South Indian style.
Yeah, their style is a little different in terms of you can choose the bread that you want and different kind of dips. They don't call it curries.
They call it dip. I would not go there.
Yeah,
I would
you should
not go
try it. It's really good.
there. I'll definitely. I just go away from these fancy namings. Just call it whatever it is, and then it works for me.
No, because it's not curry.
I
That's why
see.
they call it dip.
I see. I see. Yeah. So we are getting some likes on our Facebook picture that I posted on LinkedIn. I think a couple of people have seen that on LinkedIn also. Not too many, but at least there are some clicks somewhere. Where is that? View profile, recent activity. It's so hard to find. There are 5 likes on LinkedIn. Wow. Huh. Okay. Oh, there is Ted. Ted likes it. That is our person. Is he online? Yes, Ted is online. So Ted seems to have liked it. Sorry, Ted, we missed you. Ted is muted.
Yes, I'm here. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. Good. So thank you. You saw our pictures at least, if not met in person.
So I think last night you were saying Kanishka, cuisine of India. That's been
Yeah, Kanishka is also a good one in Kanishka. The food is edible. Sorry for butchering it. That's how the best words that I can say about food, Indian food outside, is it is edible. That means I will go and eat it.
Yeah. The other place I'll recommend in Redmond probably is Chart House.
is the which one?
It's called Chart House.
Chart House. That's the name.
Oh, Chat House. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a crazy thing in Chat House, which I remember is this. This is found only in India, but apparently now here also. This is like sugarcane juice, like really, really sugary, but really nice, fresh sugarcane, and they'll juice it for you on the spot. And no insects, no
Oh, wow.
mosquito, no insects, no mosquitoes, no flies. That's scary. Uh, so in India, sugarcane juice shop is typically full of flies, and you are supposed to fall sick after you drink it. And that doesn't happen here, apparently, in Bellevue.
Interesting. I know there's a. I don't know if if you go to a very hardcore, or I should say traditional Mexican restaurant,
Uh-huh.
they also have a drink there that looks like milk, and it's called chaca, and it's the same kind of thing. It's a sugary. Yeah, it's very strange, but it's very traditionally Mexican.
Okay.
Chaca.
Yeah, it has milk in it though.
Oh, does it have milk in it? Okay.
So if this picture gets posted, picked up so I have 1485 friends. If it gets picked up by my brother, I don't know how many likes it'll get. So the crazy thing is my brother's pictures get thousands of likes whenever he posts anything. That's the crazy part about being a famous person, at least in India. That helps. So let's check the time. We passed the time. Okay, so let's continue. I keep talking and I forget the time. So keep 7:17. Let's proceed. So on this thing we just did, what we did was that we created a LAMP stack and deployed an application up on top. So we took a box like this box, put a database there, DB. Then this was running the MySQL Server software. We have PHP language. We have the Apache web server, and all of these things on a common droplet. Right, this droplet that we got from DigitalOcean, it is running all these things. Right, it runs Linux. So So we have all the dependencies met, and these things are available and serving the application, whatever you have. This software, MySQL daemon running, that runs a database. The database itself is called WordPress. The name of the DB, the password is password. How crazy. And I chose these names, password. So the name is password, the name is WordPress, password is password, the host is localhost, all of it on the same box and all that. That's how the configuration is, just to basically get it to work very, very quickly. In real life, you would never, absolutely never use the password as password. I mean, I'm doing it. The username happens to be username, and localhost is the host, which is great. But the password, where's the password? So here is the database name right there. Then the password is here and here. I'm saying that, the username for the password for this username is going to be password, and allow all privileges, and basically setting up ourselves for success in quick and easy deployment by just clicking through without even thinking about it. And that is just an academic exercise. In real life, you don't do it like this. Like, absolutely not. Don't. Now, having said, I would like to listen for questions that you might have in this particular step we just completed, and identify ideas in which how can you take this whole thing without manually running those SH script and another SH script. I would like to have the whole thing, including these guys, run through the same chef way. That's what I would like to see is happen in a fashion that everything gets run through Chef. So I don't have to go manually muck around. That's my goal as the very next step. So what do you think we need to do to make these two steps? We had a DB setup and we have a WordPress setup, and these created a username and a database and all that. And this thing downloaded the application itself and then put in the right spot. That's what we just did with that script. And this guy set up a database and then connected the two together. So that's what we wanted to do, but we don't want to do manually. We don't want to go SSH to the droplet. We want to go all of it through Chef. That's what I would like to see, and that's the next step. Before we jump to the next step, I would like to understand if you have any questions as to what we have done up until now. And yes, the exercise is kind of long, but it has a necessity of being long because there are lots of moving parts. We want to lock down all the moving parts in our Chef repo so that we can just repeat that step over and over very quickly. And I'll just illustrate that. What I will do is I'll go and in DO, and that droplet I have, I'll just destroy it. Here we go, bye-bye. So I destroy the droplet and say, okay, go. So the droplet is dead, which means I need to now clean up. How do I clean up? I need to delete the client, delete the node, remove my known host, and make sure that my droplet list shows nothing. So I need to run these cleanup steps. And I will go back to my machine here. The droplet is, by the way, dead. So this is not going to respond to us. We are going to close the terminal and say, come back to our terminal again and go to Chef repo. And in here, we are going to run those cleanup steps. So like delete the client, delete the node, delete the known host file, and check for droplet list. We should get an empty list. Good. So we are clean now, which means we can run that Chef client deployment, this step one more time, very, very quickly as this way. And off we go, which means we should have a new droplet getting ready for us with a different IP address, or maybe the same IP address. I don't remember. But that new IP address will get configured with everything you have for the Chef deployment. And this time, as you will see, the run list is not empty. So let us watch what happens. So we'll see it. So I'm running the same thing over after cleaning it up, waiting for SSHD. And once SSHD becomes available, it will connect and do the thing, like install Chef, run Chef, all that. So just see what happens now. So run list is still empty because we deleted the node. If we had kept the node name and just destroyed the droplet and deleted our deleted our what's the name? SSH, missing out on the name. If we had deleted only the node, only the droplet and the known host file, only these two, the known host file as well as the droplet, and kept the name and the client name, it would have kept our association with the production environment, and our roles will also have kept intact. However, since we deleted the name and the client, it forgot what role we had. It also forgot what environment we were in, which means we need to go back to our previous step and make sure that we are taking care of the environment parts, which are right here. So I need to go run my roles, assign them to Abracadabra, 1, 2, and 3. And once I do that, I will also set my node in production mode, which puts Abracadabra in production. Now I can quickly check whether my node is exactly the way I want. And then I find that it has the roles now, which means I can now connect to this IP address. And I will do that. I will go SSH root at IP address, and oops, there's a space there. So it was a space problem. So I should have copied properly. I left that space out, which I should not. So I should copy nice and clean, and then run SSH root at IP address, and it should let me in. And I am in, which means I need to run sudo chef client and watch the fun. You will see the whole thing's running one more time. You will see that it will do all the things, the LAMP stack deployment completely one more time, very, very easily, because we have done the grunt work already. So once you have this point in time snapshot of your kitchen like this, you can repeat the step very, very effortlessly. All you are doing essentially is just running that knife command one more time, which invokes chef and does the thing for you. It brings up another box up and running live. And that's what's happening. It takes like 2 minutes, 3 minutes max. If you have the whole thing up and running, it will do it. It will become ready. And that's what you're looking at, waiting for it to complete. And when it does, we can just move on without checking and move on to the DB deployment and the application deployment steps right here, right now. As soon as this thing gives me an opportunity, I will basically run the DB deployment as well as the WordPress deployment, those two aspects. And then move on to the next step, which is do the same thing, but the chef way. And let this finish. A few seconds more and it should finish fast. So it finished that, or almost finished that. I'm so impatient. Okay, come on, machine, move. Yeah, this is the wait part is I hate. I just cannot tolerate wait. But then I have to. Don't have much choice. If I really did not like wait, I should have increased the machine size to a bigger box, and it would have been a little bit faster, like 30 seconds faster. But it finished. And so at this moment, we are connected to that droplet right now. We just stay connected and bring our database script. Also bring our other script. So just 2 scripts one at a time. And we have the 2 scripts down there. We'll run first one, the database first. So sh db setup first. And then sh wp setup. That one also taken care of. And we now have a functioning WordPress on our IP address. Let us see what is my IP address. And it is right there. So we take that IP address, copy, and open, and we should be greeted with WordPress. So we'll just rush through it and say submit and run the install and say Badal username and email address, and disable searching by search engines. I don't want it to be searched. And then say login, and then we log in, and off we go. And so here it is letting us in. We can see our thing runs. And yes, there are some updates and all that. We can take that later. But you saw the thing ran. We had to still manually go do 2 steps after the fact. What we did was these 2 steps, like, the 2 steps were history. The last 2 steps, we did this step and that step. These 2 are manually executed, and these 2 wgets, wget1 and wget2, these 2 downloads, wgets are downloads. These 2 downloads were done manually, and these 2 commands were run manually, which is not what I want. So I want to go do it automatically. And how would I do that? Any guess? What would it take? Another cookbook. Yes. 2 more cookbooks actually. So we'll do that. Very simple. We'll do 2 cookbooks in 2 different, slightly different ways. So two slight variations to it. One is so you will see as I proceed. So first one, we'll create the automating end to end, which means we have to have a cookbook, custom cookbook, to deploy WordPress software itself, and another cookbook to create a database and a user for WordPress. Now, some of us who are new to this idea of a database, I would like to clarify that MySQL is a software. MySQL daemon is spelled like this. Daemon is a server that runs on the back end on a database server. This is responsible for the server part of the database. This is the DB server. So when people say I'm running Oracle, that's what they mean. They're running some Oracle daemon somewhere, or maybe they don't call it Oracle daemon. I don't know. I don't know Oracle. I don't touch it. We have experts in this group who are DB experts on Oracle, so I don't even want to go there because it's proprietary software. I don't touch it. The server is the application that runs on a server that serves databases. In that server, you can have multiple databases. And then also you need to have a variety of users. And you can map pretty much like this. Like which user can connect which DB. So you can basically map it like this. I think I should draw it here. You can map it pretty much like this. Which user can connect to which database. So user number 3 should be allowed to connect to database number 2. Fine. And user number 2 should be allowed to connect to database number 3. Fine. Like that. You can give permissions like this. And that permission structure itself is stored in another database. This is not accessible by these guys. No, they cannot access this database, which is another database. By the way, all these 1, 2, 3, 0, all these guys are sitting on the server. The server is responsible for maintaining which user can access which database, and the permission structure is stored in a different database. These databases is what you see when you go here. And you can say show databases, semicolon, enter, and you are seeing 4 databases. Information schema, MySQL, performance schema, and WordPress. These are 4 rows in a set. The set happens to be the database set. We asked it to show databases, so it did. We asked it to show users, so it will. I think it is the, maybe it's user. I don't know. Somebody can help me out here in terms of the exact syntax. If you know it, just say it. I don't remember it. But there is a way to figure out who are the users. I think I'll find out the exact command if you don't know how to identify the users. I was trying to show you a picture, basically like this. This database number 1, database number 2 can map to these users, user A and user B. That mapping is also stored in another database. That's what I was trying to figure out. I don't seem to remember the command off top of my fingertips. And so this relationship.
Put it in Slack chat.
Okay, thank you. There we go. Thank you, sir. So we have Alex answering the question that I had, and the Slack chat has the answer, which is what I'm going to run. And the command is select user from mysql.user semicolon. There we have. So we have a bunch of users there. These are default, sorry, I should call them replication user, root user, Debian system maintenance user, root user again. And then this is the custom user that I created myself in the script that you see there. Also, in the list of databases, you have this database called WordPress that my script creates. As you can tell, I don't deal with databases on a day-to-day basis, so I don't remember the commands that Alex was quick to point out. Thank you, Alex. So this WordPress is a database that gets created through this gist. Like you have somewhere here, there's a create database step that if doesn't exist, if the database does not exist, then create WordPress. And it is written like this kludgy fashion with an intended purpose. And I'll tell you that purpose right now. The purpose is this database, if it exists already, and you're trying to create one more time, it will fail the script. And you don't want the script to fail. So it's an error condition check. If it doesn't exist, database does not exist, only then you attempt to create. And so the first run, it will happily find that the database called WordPress does not exist. This one does not exist. So it will create one. And that was very quick and easy. However, creating a user that doesn't exist is kind of difficult. Not a one-line command. It's not difficult. It's just not a one-line. So in this remainder of sequence that you see in this writing, what I'm basically doing is if there is a user called username, drop it. That's what I'm doing. Drop if user exists. So there's a little procedure written down here, and so I'm running the procedure to find out if the user exists. And if the user called username exists, just drop him, and then create again. That's one way to do it. So create username at localhost identified by password. That's one way to script it. There are many ways to do the same thing. What I'm attempting to do in this example is to do it the idempotent way. Meaning if you run the script over and over and over again, it is not going to produce a different outcome before you actually set up the whole site. So once the site is set up, you should not run the script because it will destroy. You don't want that. And there are some checks you need to add. This can be further refined. So this is just a primitive step for you to get clarity in understanding what idempotency is and how it helps you in playing with automation using Chef or other tools like that. Now that's exactly what we are going to do is build out two different new cookbooks. So first one is about WordPress and second one is database. So I'm going to come out of this prompt. So I'll say quit. And now I'm back in Abracadabra. And next unit is where we'll begin creating another cookbook. This time, since we are dealing with creating cookbooks, we need to be back in our workstation, not in Abracadabra. We do not need to work here at all. Remember, our job with Abracadabra for now is done. So we want to exit. And we are back in our Chef repo. So you belong here. That's where you need to work in. And in that location, here, Chef repo, that's where you create a cookbook. Another one. Right now, your created cookbooks, you have only one called your SQL. This is a play on the word MySQL. And it changes a little bit, the flow sequence and some override attributes. That's what it does. And what we now intend to do is create one more cookbook. So we go here and write another cookbook for ourselves by doing this step. Simple. Please create a cookbook for me, call it WP. Okay, you got it. So now we have a WP cookbook right there. And it has a recipe, which is the default recipe, and it is empty, blank. It is all commentary. It has our name there, but yeah, commentary. It's all comments. Hashtag is comment. You know this hashtag. So that is comments. We don't want that necessarily to be remaining like that. We will change it. So we need to understand and think about what we want to change. That's what we'll do next. So we'll look at the default recipe we just did. And that recipe is what we want to edit. So we want to edit that file using gedit or atom or whatever you like and paste this. Now let us see what it does. So most of these lines, are red colored lines, are all comments that you already saw. Now we want to do here is to insert some actual meaningful things. So like here, this portion is what I want to focus on. And this is what I'm trying to accomplish is this script. And I'm invoking the WordPress installation, download, followed by expansion, followed by removal of the tarball, followed by moving it to the right spot and changing the ownership and all that step. That's what I'm doing in a inline bash script that begins from this point with this point actually, echo EOH. That's where it begins. The bash script begins right here. So all the blue highlight that you see is the bash script that we used before. But I'm embedding that bash script, all of it. This all blue goes inside here, the blue here, between the EOH and the other EOH. Those two EOHs are indicators of beginning and end markers of the bash script. That script is what we want to run, but through Chef, through a cookbook. And that's the intention. So if you read that thing itself, and if you run that over and over, all it will do is download the package from WordPress.org and remove the existing directory. This is destructive. That's actually a very bad thing to have. If you have a live site, don't run it. But since we are in a process of building our infrastructure, it is okay to remove the old folder and just bring a new install of WordPress and remove the old one and place the new one in the right spot. And that's workable solution. It's not a good solution. It is a workable solution. And that's what I have here in this example, in which I have embedded the shell script itself, created a Ruby wrapper around it. So this is the Ruby wrapper, up on top and end at the bottom. That's the Ruby wrapper I have put. And what I intend to do is take this segment and put that in our recipe. And that's what I will do. Take all of this. And you don't need to copy the commentary because it's just commentary. Take this section. Don't forget anything. Copy the whole thing. And then go back to your WP cookbook. In the default recipe, below the commentary, paste and save. You just have created one more cookbook with a little Ruby wrapper around a shell script that does the thing you want to do. And that makes one cookbook for WordPress. This is just very primitive, just beginning. We are beginning to learn things. So we are doing it as we go along. And we go to the next step. We have the WordPress cookbook now in place. Next step, we want to have one more cookbook, this time for the database and user, both. So we want to create a DB user cookbook. So we'll basically go to our Chef repo and say, give me one more cookbook, call it DB user. Okay, you got it. So you got the DB user cookbook. And if you look at the recipe, it is going to be an empty skeleton. All of it is commentary. So we want to go edit that and insert this block of code. However, as you will see, there are slight differences in this. What we are doing is we are actually creating a different file, not injecting the default recipe here. We are not mucking around with the default RB file quite yet. But we'll do that in a next step. In the next step, what we intend to do is actually then change the default RB. So it's a slight different way of creating and including a shell script inside a recipe. And this DB user is a different way of doing than what we did for the WordPress. For WordPress, what we did is put everything right in the recipe itself. You saw it, bash script inline, and all that is right in the body of the Ruby file itself. This is the RB file, default.rb. It's a Ruby file for WordPress cookbook. Whereas in this example of DB user, we are not following the exact method. We are going to do a slightly different method of passing a separate file. The file itself needs to be created. And guess what? The files will belong to the files folder default location. And that's what we need to go create a file. So if you read this carefully, it says edit the file, gedit, site cookbooks, DB user, file default, and then a file name. So watch it carefully. It is gedit, site cookbooks, which is this folder, DB user, which is that cookbook, files, which is this folder, and then default underneath. And then under that default is where we want to create a new file called install dbuser script, shell script. And that is a sh file, not an RB file, not RB. This is not Ruby. This is going to be a new file, paste by that name. And that's the name we want to save it as. However, the body should contain this. That should be the body. And this is basically the script that we had here, the same script. So we will take the body that we want, copy it over, and put it right in that location, place. And if you make the screen a little bit smaller so people can see, that would be awesome. So I'm doing that right now. I'm going to do it again. So I'll cancel, don't save. Do it again, one more time. New file, make it a little smaller, and then paste. So you can see the whole thing in one shot, like this. Now you see the whole script. You want to save that script with this name, install dbuser.sh, in that folder called files default under the dbuser site cookbook. That's what we intend to do. So we are going to create a file. So saving it. And then we are going to go to the site cookbooks folder, dbuser, files, default, and give it a name. The name is this. Site cookbooks, dbuser, files, default, and the file name is this, which is given here. This install dbuser. We are leaving it as a shell script. We are not yet creating a Ruby file quite yet, but we'll do that in the next step. And that Ruby file itself will refer this script. So it's a reference to a script as opposed to putting the script in the body itself. Two different ways of doing things. I'm going to save the script as is in the files default install dbuser sh. That thing got saved right there in the right location, and you can see it. You can see in Atom it actually nicely colors the stop signs here and the body in between for database and all that. And so that is what you're looking at. You just created this shell script. We want to use it now in the default recipe. This default recipe will actually make a reference to the install dbuser script. Momentarily, we will add that. Currently, our default recipe is empty, And so what we want to do next is to make use of the script file we now have in our default recipe. So in here, site cookbooks, db user, recipe, default RV, which is this file right there. So it is site cookbooks, db user, recipe, default RV. That file, this one, is what we want to do is append after the commentary, add this block, which is, we don't want to copy the commentary, you don't have to. You can copy the commentary, but it's pointless. So the comments you can skip. I'm just making it a little bit smaller. There we go. Yeah. So here you can copy the comments, but these red comments do not make sense. They do nothing much. At least for the machine, they do nothing. So the operative parts are these guys. So we want to grab those, copy them, bring them, and read about them, read what they're doing. So let's go paste here and make it a little big font so you can see it. And if you save this file first, so the default RB is saved. Now, if you look at this file carefully, it has two blocks. One is this block here, and the other is the block below that. Now here, the first thing is this reference to a cookbook file. This is a chef resource. So think about it, is what you want to do is you want to copy a file from your laptop over, not from your laptop. Copy this file from the chef server. Right? It will go to the chef server. This becomes a cookbook, right? So it will go to the chef server, and from chef server, this script will come down and get placed in a TMP location. In that TMP location, you want to place the script, and the source for that script will be the file mentioned in the source reference in the cookbook file resource. So when this particular DB user cookbook will come down from the chef server, it will include the file default, this file. It will already have it. You will take that as a resource reference here and create on the target box, which is abracadabra in our example. On that box, you will create /tmp /install_db.user, this file name. And then change its mode to 700 so you can execute. The owner is user, the group is user. That's the username for the user that we have. You know, the user is you. This user is user. This user is you, is user. Yes, it is confusing, but you are the user. So that's the user. And this other segment or the block of code is referencing the bash reference. And here what we are doing is, instead of inserting the code itself inline in the body of a cookbook to make it really long and complex, we are basically running a very small reference to the same script right there. This shell script reference installs in the TMP directory, change it to the TMP directory, which is where the file is now created on the abracadabra box. Go to TMP and run the script. So it's effectively wrapping around this and referencing the other file, which is coming down from this block of code on the target box, abracadabra. So once we have this segment of code saved in the default recipe, we now have another cookbook called the DB user. And I'm deliberately keeping these cookbooks, whatever we created, keeping them small and simple to understand. And I think keeping things small is a good thing. Don't have to necessarily make it big. You know, ideally, a code in my mind should be written that you can see on one screen of monitor, maybe a large monitor, but that's the ideal file size from a good quality code. Is really short, focused. It does one thing and it does it really nice. And that's the way of thinking in Unix. That's the way of thinking in Linux. Is do one thing, do it right, and then you're done. That's the purpose in life. And that's how everything in Unix and Linux is written, is do one thing, do it right. And that's the philosophy of Unix. If you go read about that, Unix philosophy, This is the approach is minimalistic, modular software. You can read more about it later on your own and discuss. These guys, Ken Thompson and Dennis Ritchie, basically originated that idea that you should read. I think it's a good one to read on your own. Now, having discussed this part, let us continue along in what we need to do next is to, now that we have these two little cookbooks, WP User and the WP and DB User, these two cookbooks, what we need to do next is to make sure that we are putting them in a Git commit, which is, I think, what I will do in the write-up somewhere. What just happened? Hold on. Yeah, okay. So I'm skipping the Git parts. In the write-ups do not contain Git, but I'm going to do it because Git is the right thing to do. So Git add everything and then Git commit. And so I'm adding the DB User and WP cookbook in Git repository. So now I have it. The next thing I want to do is send these books over to the Chef server so that Chef server will know that we have new cookbooks. So it will take into account those books once we run it. So on that repo, we have those two new cookbooks, and we need to make sure that our Chef server has them. Right now, if you look at policy and books, you don't have the WP User here, and you don't WP and DB User. You don't have those two cookbooks yet. You have the Your SQL, this one, but not the other two books yet. So we need to send it. So we'll say bundle, exec, knife, cookbook, upload, all of them. And it knows where the cookbooks are. We have defined it in the knife configuration. And so I just executed it, but I'll show you that in our knife configuration, we have defined that our cookbook path is line number 9. So it knows where the books are. It'll just grab all the books and send them over. So along with the books, you have the DB User book going, you have the WP book going. All these books are going up to the Chef server. And once the upload finishes, you should see them in the browser on the left side. So all books uploaded, nice. Now we should just refresh and check whether you have your WP. Yes, you do. And DB User. Those two books are available now. Nice. Now what we need to do next is we have to take on expanded role in life. So you remember, the roles that we gave were base role, the WP. So what was the role again? Web server role. And another role was DB_master role. So these three roles we gave to the box. When you grow up, hey box, when you grow up, I would like you to take this role and that role and that role. So please take these roles and just do it. And the box did it. And we got a lamb stack, but that doesn't have the application. So we need to include additional functions in life, such as the two cookbooks we have, right? We have to take care of those two. We have to expand the role of the box. And that's what we'll do next. So here, next unit, what we are doing is expanding the web server role, this one, to include a reference to run the default recipe in the two new custom cookbooks you created, like WP and DB User. Those two we need to expand. So what does it mean? It means we have to go and modify our role. So we have to go to the role, that one, in the web server role. And in that role, we are going to expand like this. So we'll say enter. And that's where we'll add new roles right there. Right here. The roles are basically added are a run a recipe called WP default and a recipe called DB User default. Those two items we want you to run. So that's what we are going to give. Everything else is the same. If you look at the description, web server, the role base, PHP, mod MySQL, Apache mod PHP 5, Apache mod rewrite, those are all the same. We just need to add two more references here. And these two references are going to be in that location. And those are, one of them pointing to the default recipe in the WP cookbook and the default recipe in the DB user cookbook. And that's what we intend to run one after the other. And we are expanding our web server role by adding these two lines. Everything else remains the same. We are not changing anything quite yet. And so once you have this new expanded web server role, we want to save the role. So we'll click and save. So the new role we have shows in yellow color, which means something changed in Git. So we should check Git status. It will show that there is a new role, modified web server role, which means we need to git add and git commit. And then also send this new role to the chef server. Chef server has no idea that you just expanded the role. So we would like to tell chef server, hey chef server, bundle exec, knife, role from file, roles, web server. Take my role. And it did. That's the next step, I think, that I just did that next step, which is on the next page. And then on the next page, you will find that I'm uploading all the cookbooks, which I already did, and uploaded all the roles. We don't need to upload all the roles, but you know what? It doesn't matter. You can upload one more time. It doesn't hurt, but it's pointless. I'm just doing it. The only thing that needed to change, that needed to be sent, was this role, which we already did. And we sent it again. Doesn't matter and doesn't hurt. Basically, it's pointless to send it one more time, but we did. Now the yellow.
Quick question for you.
Yes.
Did you indicate previously that : default was not a requirement because it will be treated as the default?
Correct. If you don't have anything like here, like Apache, if you're silent about this section, it is the default. It is assumed to be the same.
So that's not required when we add those, but it's fine that it's there.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So the : default is implied. It is not required.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
You're welcome. So we have our collection of roles and cookbooks and all up there. So what we need to do next is just go back and run chef one more time, which means SSH. And then on abracadabra, on that remote box, we need to run chef client one more time. And here we go. So we will go run it. And this time the role is expanded. So let us see what happens. You should see those new roles pop up. Okay, bring it back, bring it back. I'm going to show it to you. Just scroll it down and show you the changes. That's what I'm going to bring up. So your run list expanded. You can see that the run list now includes the last two items, which is WP default and DB user default. These are expanded roles. You now have the two cookbooks added on. They came back from chef server. And now it ran the whole thing just like we wanted, and it finished. And it did exactly the thing we wanted, which should be available to us. So we can go back to the same box that we had. Our box IP address is this. So we'll grab the IP address, copy, take it to a browser, paste, run, open, and see what comes up. The site is still alive. It did not die, even though we ran chef. And by the way, let us run chef one more time. How about that? Like this. And so if you run it one more time, it doesn't hurt. It will gladly do nothing, and do that nothing very quickly, like in 7 seconds. Right there. And you can go back and check your Badal site, and it is still running fine. It doesn't destroy. you're running the whole thing, the whole setup over and over and over again. It doesn't destroy. It leaves it alone. If you find something is working, don't mess with it. If you find something is broken, fix it and bring the idea of idempotency in place. So that's what we just did in our abracadabra. Now we'll break this box, like come out of it. And then I would like to delete the box because I'm happy like deleting things. So I will do that just now. I will say, box, you die. And then I'll create a new box because I can. And that's the whole purpose of testing. So the box will die momentarily and I will then create the whole thing in one shot. So let's begin. Now this time I want to clean up. So where are the cleanup steps? There are cleanup steps in like three or four steps before there was a cleanup step written down. I'll just copy them and delete the whole thing out. Let me just go there quickly. Second copy and paste and delete the whole thing. And those are my cleanup steps. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Copy. Excuse me. So I have managed to delete my client, delete my node, delete my known host file, and also my droplet is not deleted yet apparently. So I need to delete that droplet ID. So I'll copy the ID and say this ID, I need you. And I'll say bundle exec knife digital ocean droplet destroy -s and then ID. Go. So it will kill the droplet. Nice. Now we'll just check our list and we should see an empty list. Nice. So we have nothing in the cloud. Beautiful. Now let us run the whole thing this time in one shot, like all of it end to end. Let's see how it runs. So what we are doing is going to the point where we can run everything in one attempt and it should run, and let's figure out how it goes. So it says now you can run the entire exercise in just one command, and let us understand that command before we run it. So here we have the command Atom opens up, and the command is this, except I need that key ID. So I'll take the key ID. So that's what I intend to grab from there and paste it here. This is the old key ID. It doesn't work. It will not work for me. I need to get the right ID in place. And now let us read line by line. Actually, this I'll copy it over to the workstation for a better view. So here in our Atom editor, I'm going to paste it. That's the command I want to run. And let us read it line by line. Bundle exec knife digital underscore ocean droplet create. Create a box. Call it this time not abracadabra, but call it Cloud Genius. Different name. Your name do not matter. In fact, if you have a real DNS name, you should put the DNS name right there. Something like this. That's more appropriate. If you happen to have a name, use it. If you don't have a name, any name is fine. So I'm just using any name. Next one, image. We are using Ubuntu OS. Location, New York City. Size, you can make it big if you like. Bootstrap, you're setting up Chef and you're running Chef. Identity file is the SSH key that you want to pass. SSH keys ID is a number that generates. It is very unique to DigitalOcean Cloud. This ID number you can obtain through only one method, and that method happens to be SSH key list. So bundle exec knife digital ocean SSH key list is the only method you can obtain the ID. There is no other method apart from this on the command line or on the browser to get this ID number. And that ID number is used in line number 8. This is the only place you will find your ID. Again, the only place to get the ID is this command. This number is what you need to use in line number 8. Any other number that you might have is wrong. The number that is right for you is the one that you get in the result. Here, that number for you will be the right number. That command is a command that most people run into as a problem. So I'm going to remember to paste in Slack chat like this and point out that's the one you need to get the ID number from. Get your get your DigitalOcean SSH key ID from here. SSH key ID from this step. Now, having obtained that ID, we put that in line number 8. Set our environment to be production, all in one line. This is, if you recall a previous step, we are adding the box in production environment by another command. We are just including a flag right there. And then assigning a run list. You know what? When you box, you grow up. You want to take on the base role. You want to become a DB master, and you also want to take the web server role. In our web server role, we have expanded it to include our new cookbooks, like this, as well as like this. So those two new cookbooks are included. So the web server role is expanded already, and our chef server has those roles, which means when I run this command, like all of it, select all, copy, and then bring to my terminal, make the terminal full screen, clear, and paste. What do you expect to see is at the end of the run, you will have a new droplet running everything you wanted. Right now, all my droplets are dead. And now I will run this command and I will get a droplet, but not just a droplet, but a complete WordPress stack deployed. Off we go. And watch it, give it 2 minutes. And until that time, you can ask questions. I'll let it finish and we can go back to the IP address that we will obtain momentarily and watch our application running live on that IP address in 2 minutes. So copying that IP address in my buffer, let this run on the left half of the screen while you are welcome to ask questions if you have any, or just watch the fun. Just watch the fun. So we are going to paste it and wait for it to actually work through the process. And at the end, I am expecting to see live WordPress. Not with Badal, but live WordPress. No data, only a fully connected configured database. No data. So we'll add data like Badal and other posts and other things and other plugins and everything we want. But we'll get everything else, not the data part. The data is what users add. Users will add the data later on. And so as you see on the right side, go ahead.
Yeah, Neelish, that brings up a question.
Yes.
So let's say, this is WordPress, and, typically we're going to add that data to the database manually.
Why manually?
What if I've got a, pardon?
There is no reason to do that step also manually. You can do backups and restores.
Well, that's what I'm getting to.
Yes.
Yeah, because so as an example, what if I've got a SQL server running, and is you go ahead and set up the SQL server, then you set up the web server for the clients, and then what you want to do is you want to download the full database to that database server.
Yeah.
And what is the best way to actually do that? Because as I was explaining to a friend about, cows versus cats and all that kind of stuff, if I'm running a database that normally serves, let's say, 20 users, and something goes sideways, instead of spending hours trying to fix it, what I do is I kill the server and start over again. But I also want to quickly reinstall that data too.
Right. So to reinstall data back the way it was, one of the essential things you need to have is the data. And how do you get the data? take a backup. So what does
Yeah,
it
but
mean?
yeah, generally you don't want to put it back to square zero and lose all your users' data. You want to be able to restore to it
Right,
anytime
right.
after that. So
Yep.
databases are different. You have to have backups or you lose user data.
That's
So
right. You don't want to use user data, otherwise users will complain the heck out of you, and we don't want that. So, right
Yeah,
now,
I mean, you could be taking snapshots, backups, and things like that, and so that when things go sideways, you can take your backup and then restore it. But the question is, are you when you actually put the data on, you've got to move it from somewhere into the cloud.
so I'll
And
demonstrate that.
I guess that's
I'll demonstrate you
okay.
now. So hold on. I just saw that my WordPress deployment finished. I'm just creating an account and just moving on with it. And so here we have our passwords do not match. How nice of me. I cannot type the same thing over, apparently. So now I did. It seems like it. Okay. And say not now, login, and my name and my password, and say remember me and login. And so not now, update, and off we go. So we are now running Badal right there. And this is the deployment. So all it took us was like 2 minutes on the chef run and then some user configuration. That's it. Now we have the database. Now, your question about what you're asking, Patrick. I'll quickly get to a point of a quick way of taking a, let me show you in real live example. Where is that? Hold on, let me find it. Terminal. Expand. Make it big. Make it big. Come on, become big, please. Yes. Now go to a folder I want and then do a poll. A poll is what I want to run. Oops, Ansible play Linux 07 poll. And yeah, that's the command I want to run. So I'm going to copy the command and I'll describe the command itself. What I'm basically doing is on this live site that you're looking at now, this site, it is live with real users. And we have at least one user complaining earlier today, saying that her course flow here is all not green, but she like did some mark complete steps, and those are missing. What happened? And that is what I'm trying to figure out. But ultimately, what I will need to do is restore, and I hope I succeed in that, is to basically restore the database to a point in time which I may or may not have taken a snapshot. So this run that I'm going to do, off it goes, is going to go to the real Cloud Genius. Okay, it ran out of space in real life. No space left on the device. How nice. Okay, that means my hard disk is full. This is crazy. But let me go there and clean up my hard disk.
Well, we don't need to do that right now.
Yeah.
We don't want to screw stuff up.
I want to, because otherwise some of you will complain that the site doesn't work. So I really want to do that. See that?
Okay.
The site will stop working if I don't do that quickly. So we have the hold folder, sudo rm-rf hold. Off we go. Okay, now it should work. So the Ansible run will play nicely. And what I'm doing is basically grabbing a data dump. You're taking the dump right now. It is saying that SQL dump on the DB box happening right now. So this is going on. Taking a MySQL dump, taking all the database, all the user generated content, the files and pictures and everything, compressing that in a tarball, bringing it local to the computer, and now bringing the dump to the computer, and did all that in 7 steps. And it finished successfully this time because there was no space in the earlier attempt. What does that mean? I have a dump in my computer, local, right here in the hold folder with timestamp of right now. So this is the timestamp of right now which is 18th of February 2023, and this is the content of the entire site, all the files. Similarly, if you go look at the other file here, now this is going to be a very large file. It's the database dump, and it's not humanly readable. I mean, no, not easily humanly readable, I should say, only nerd readable. So I'm not opening it, but you get the point, is that I have these snapshots already for me. So I can go back to them anytime I feel like. So the critical thing is, if you want your users to be happy, you need to be able to take backups rapidly and frequently. Almost instantaneous rollbacks is the awesome capability that you can deploy in a large scale corporation. For me, a daily backup is good enough. Sometimes some things go wrong and some users might actually complain, but most of the time they don't. And that's something that I think, improving backup frequency to the point where you can actually ultimately fine-grain backup to a point in time, if you like, that is ideal. Like, you do it in Exchange.
But actually, if you really want not to lose any user data at all, you should have 2 copies of the database, one of them that's being kept up to date, so that if your first copy fails, you can fail over to the second, and then.
Right. Yeah.
That's
Now,
that's the fastest way to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's expensive because you have to have double equipment. It's more complex, so it's harder to maintain. But that's the fastest way to do it. But I think on AWS, for the higher support levels, they have disk level replication that will save your database if your server goes away.
Hey, Helen, can you describe some of your best practices, please?
I mean, I just did.
Yeah, just clarify. So everybody speak so everybody can understand. That's the challenge, right? Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So really, the only way to make sure that if you have a failure, you don't have any downtime on your database, is to run 2 copies of the database. One that's the primary database, and then a second one that is kept up to date somehow by applying transactions from the first one. And most database systems have a method for doing that. SQL Server does, Oracle does. I'm not familiar enough with MySQL to know if they do.
It does. But
another way to do this is don't maintain it at the database level. Go down one level into the disk. And it's my understanding that Amazon has disk replication at the disk layer.
Mm-hmm.
So if your server goes down and you're paying for that level of support, they have a copy that you could repoint to.
Yes.
So you want to do replication. If you want continuous availability, you want replication at some level of your system. So you can do it at the disk layer, and then it captures, say, everything on your server, not just what's in your database, but you can also do it at the database layer, and then it captures everything in your database on a second database that's kept up to date. And on one of the systems I worked on, we had huge databases that did a couple of terabytes worth of transactions a day.
Ouch.
And Oracle has a built-in feature called Data Guard, where you set up a second database and just tell it to send all of the transactions that it does to this second database, and we had a big enough pipe that we were able to replicate that data. So if something happened, if an earthquake hit in Seattle and we lost our data center here in our remote location, we would just fail over to that database, the second database that was up to date, would lose maybe 30 seconds of uptime and no transactions would be lost.
Nice.
A few in-flight transactions might be rolled back. So if you want something really robust, because no matter what, if you don't have something like that, and you have to recover, it takes time to recover. So it'll take time for you to restore the copy of your database and roll it forward to a point in time by applying transaction logs. So that takes time. So for the very high availability systems, but again, not everything needs that kind of high availability. So it's expensive. You have to maintain 2 sets of servers. You have to maintain 2 sets of disk. You have to double everything. So it's very expensive to do that.
Yep.
But like lots of systems, but
you can actually you can configure that in AWS. I mean, this is all can be.
So
I'm
not as familiar. Yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely, it can all be done in the cloud. And
Yeah.
it's my understanding that,
Okay.
and I haven't messed around with it, so I don't know for sure how this works, but AWS does disk level replication. So everything that's on your server is replicated, which is to say AWS is guaranteeing basically that they've got a copy that you can point to that will get you back to that exact point in time. But I bet you have to pay more for that.
If we get an opportunity to help these
Yes.
guys, yeah.
Yeah.
But if we get an opportunity to help these guys, they've got an actual, they're doing transactions, actually calculating like energy purchases and sales, and keeping track of all this. And they want to do this all in the web. And the guys doing it, this is their first shot at doing anything in the cloud. And I offered that we would help them, and I haven't heard from them yet. But if we can, it'll be very cool to see how we can do that.
So there's all kinds of different database technologies and disk replication technologies that allow you to do that. And then Oracle has some more sophisticated features that will allow you to do things like replicate to another, replicate all your, so I have two databases, replicate all the transactions going to database A to database B, and replicate all the transactions going from B to A. So both databases can be kept up and used independently, and they keep in sync.
Yeah,
but it's pretty complicated to set stuff like that up.
Yeah, we actually were doing that all the time with Exchange and replicating between sites located like in San Francisco and Chicago and Virginia and all that.
So it's very similar concepts like Patrick is suggesting. Patrick is dealing with Exchange databases. So same idea applies, same concept applies. You have a database and you have to make sure that you protect the data. You can do, as you heard Helen talk about, do it at the disk level, or you can do it at the DB level, where you basically create redundant copies. The keyword is redundant, which means you are basically doubling down your cost. Everything is twice, which is expensive, but it's necessary for large companies. And so the two ways you can do: database level, playing the logs into another secondary database from the primary every time a transaction happens, so you don't lose any transactions. You might have some loss of availability, but no loss of data. And that's one way to approach at the DB level. The other level is to do it at the disk level. So in the example that I am about to give is the EMC SRDF, Symmetrix Data Remote Data Facility, which you actually replicate at a disk level. So in big banks and in large companies like XYZ and ABC, they will have optical fiber links. Optical links will connect one location, a disk in one location, to a disk in another location. And that's the optical linkage you have between the two diskettes. And so imagine this is New York and this is New Jersey. And something goes wrong here. And so the application that is writing a data to a database that in turn sits on the disk, you get the write command coming in, and this write has to be acknowledged back by the operating system. And the acknowledgement will happen only after it successfully writes to the disk. And that disk write has to actually happen. Only then the OS will say, I acknowledge that I have it safe. However, in case of an optical link that you establish between two geographic locations, when a write comes in like this, you want to not only write here, but also make a copy and write it here. And once this acknowledgement comes back, that you then acknowledge to the through the operating system, acknowledge to the application that, hey, app, I saved your data on the disk. So you're basically lying at that moment. Even if you have saved it here, you still do not give the acknowledgement right away until this second acknowledgement comes back from you, from the other machine, from the other location, through the optical link. So establishing an optical link between two diskettes, these diskettes are EMC Symmetrix boxes, for example, or Hitachi Data Systems boxes. And that's where this infrastructure itself is very expensive. The disks are expensive, the optical linking is expensive. But then banks that need the kind of high availability we are talking about, or companies like XYZ or ABC, these guys need those high availability, fault tolerant foolproof, disaster-proof capabilities, and they are okay with spending money, so they do that, and they will create redundancy. And you will see some of these examples in our third segment that comes up pretty soon. We are approaching that one very fast. So
and all of these technologies have different limitations, right? So like one of the things, as it used to be with SRDF, is there was a limitation on the physical distance between the two centers because of the time that it takes to do the two-phased commit. Right, optical, right, but I think it was still a couple hundred miles was the max recommended for it to work. So if you have something that you want to replicate around the world, then you're back to something like a transaction log.
Yes.
Or you do asynchronous commits, right? So you commit on one side and just hope that it gets to the other and assume that you may lose half a minute's worth of work or something. But the other thing to remember about all these big RDBMS systems is they're basically, like the Oracle kernel when you do the install now for 12c is 8 gig of code, and most of that code is set up for one thing, and that's just to maintain consistent data. So you use the features in the database and it will help you do that. So it will do things like if you have a failure while there are transactions in flight, it will catch those transactions and roll them back because they won't be consistent. Mm-hmm. So it's really smart. You just have to make sure that you use all those features that they offer you.
Yep.
And they're really, really cool when you get them working, the big data guard systems, when you get them all set up and working, because they're more complex.
Yes.
They're more complex configurations even than the primary standby configuration. Like in some cases you want a local primary and a local standby, but then you want a remote standby as well.
Yeah.
And you want to do synchronous commits, so you have to have a repeating node, a server that does the commits.
Mm-hmm.
Synchronously. So anyway, so it can get really, really, really expensive.
Yes.
With all the servers you have to set up to get it to work.
Yes, indeed. And so another way to solve this complexity is what is available as what is known as a database as a service. So I think I mentioned this thing a while ago, right?
Don't think of it as complexity. Think of it as creating jobs for DBAs.
Yes, why not? Yes, indeed. So yes, yeah, exactly.
Do we know somebody like that? Is that what that is?
We are somebody like that, so
So both points are, I think, valid in that it's the perspective that you carry. If you're using a user, like in my case, I don't have a Symmetrix SRDF deployed in Cloud. Genius cannot afford that, so I don't do it. So what I end up doing is the poor man's version, which is I take a backup, I restore. I don't even have a fully replicated configuration because I have resiliency and it is very small, so I can spin up a new one in like 2 minutes and I'm okay. And so I have survived.
Now as far as taking backups, I mean, instead of manually taking the backups, you can have it automated. So it takes a backup maybe 2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 times every hour, every minute. You can do whatever you feel like. Every minute will be 2 taxing.
Yeah, not every minute, but every hour.
Yeah, every hour is good enough. In theory.
Yeah, at some point you sort of reach a point of diminishing returns.
Right. Every minute is 2 taxing on the box, so you don't do that.
Yeah.
But
unless you want to run a cluster and run your backups on the second cluster, so second node in the cluster. But there's all kinds of fancy things you can do for that.
Yes. So as you saw in what we just discussed and did in live, is that this box now runs our WordPress on that IP address. You can just go there and maybe map it to a DNS name to make it nicer and all that. But that's the quick, it's not a quick, I should not call it quick. It's the elaborate, long, lengthy, boring, dreadly exercise. And we just did it. We just did that. And I think we're just jumping to the next exercise. So we're not going there quite yet. So what I want to do is discuss a little bit and maybe hear the thought from you guys in terms of what that other idea that we are experimenting. Some of us are doing this extended step, which is to break the entire flow that we had, not do it on one box, all in one box. That's the idea we just finished, one box. But instead break it into 2 parts. Make it 2 boxes set up. So this box becomes the WPE. It runs Apache. It runs PHP. It runs Linux. And here is another box. It runs your database on the MySQL server. and it runs Linux, and that's the other box. So this is the DB box, call it DB box, call it the app box, and then have this WordPress pointed to this database on this server. And so that configuration, I want to hear your thoughts on how would you reconfigure the cookbook collection, the kitchen. How would you redesign your steps to do the break into two parts? So you will then end up with two boxes. One, which is the WordPress deployment, and the other is a database server. And then the user will hit this one. That's the scenario. So what would you do differently in this exercise, which is module number 8, to do what we would build it up? So we are building slowly these steps one at a time. So this is the first break. So we are dividing between this function and this function. That division happened. The next logical step I would like to, after this, the next logical step is to have one more layer here and have the user point to some kind of a load balancer. And to make it really, really easy, we'll just use one right now. We'll use the Elastic Load Balancer service that Amazon provides already. So we just use the service. That's one way to approach it for a very quick approach. And then
couldn't we just, that the clients point at
Patrick, I could not get it. I did not get what you said, Patrick.
Couldn't we set up a web server that clients would hit?
Yes, you can. You can run.
Yes, so
that's going to
what I would do is I would create two servers and give one of them the role of base and web server, and one the role of base and DB master.
Yes.
And then I would go on there and figure out how to open the port on the database server. So you'd end up with two database servers. I'd run two of those: Bundle Exec Knife, DigitalOcean, Droplet Create, blah blah blah. Give them two different names.
Yes, exactly. So you will go something like this. So base plus DB master on this box, base plus web server on this box, and eventually the third layer also comes in, which we are not doing that right now. But that's the first two steps. The breakup is right here like this. So we'll define our roles. We already have them. We just run them differently, and then figure out which ports does this database needs. Turns out it needs 3306 open, and it needs to be open from this location. So it needs to go from here. So we'll go. How do you find out the port number you need? You just go do MySQL port. That's how it goes. And so you will find out port number. Actually, I typed it wrong. Otherwise, it would have popped up right away. MySQL port, default port is 3306. And that's the port. You will also find, if you go to Management Console and identify your rules for any security group and try to edit them for inbound and say edit, it will automatically have a rule drop down for MySQL somewhere here. There it is. So it will automatically put 3306 for you, just like that. So the reason is that they are aware of the fact that people use Microsoft SQL or MySQL or PostgreSQL or Oracle. So it just takes care of that port decision automatically. However, Google or the documentation for the application itself also tells you MySQL port uses 3306. So that's how you can configure. The port needs to be open. The port layout should be open pretty much like this. So I would actually put in a slightly elaborate example, I will put this in its own subnet. And I'll call this the database subnet. And in that subnet, I will have a box called DB box. DB box. And here I will have another subnet. I'll call this the for right now, I'll just put it in the border subnet, border check subnet, because we are just doing two-layer architecture. So I'll just put my web server right here, the Apache, PHP, and What else? Yeah, that's it. So, and WordPress, the application itself goes here.
Yeah.
And that becomes the border check subnet. If you recall one of the videos, I talk about border check. In other video, I talk about public subnet, the same thing. So these subnets are on the public IP. You are getting a public IP here. So people can then access it. These people, users, they can go and access it. And then this belongs to a security group. We'll call it the border check security group. This belongs to another security group. We'll call it the database security group. And in here, we need to open up this security group with port number 3306 for access from source. And in the source, you will put this reference. Goes here. So this means anybody who is on the border check subnet and uses the border check security group, meaning this box, is welcome to come and connect to this port in a machine that belongs to this security group. That means this box. And that's how the connection will establish. If you don't do it like this, it will not connect. There are more relaxed way of opening security groups, but this is the most restrictive way of opening it. You're basically tying this access to the other security group as the source. So if you belong to this club, you're welcome. If you don't belong here, you're not welcome. That's the idea. So that's how you design security group access controls, to basically narrow down to exactly the box that needs to have access, and then you welcome. Other people don't welcome. That's one way to think about a two-layer structure from a subnet layout as well as security group layout in terms of access controls. If you expand the same idea to one level beyond and make it a 3-level, let me point out to you that there is a service available here already, and that's a quick way to start, but you can build your own service. And we'll do that also. For right now, if you go to EC2 dashboard and look at this section on load balancing on the left corner here, load balancers, they have a service already given to us, and they call it the load balancer. And what this thing is, practically running HA proxy, or you can call it what's the local company, F5? Yeah, that's the name. So these guys are basically the same concept. Elastic load balancer, the same thing. Basically the same thing. That's what you have as a service. So you will give it a name. This is my load balancer. Okay, that's my name. This is my LB. And I'll select my VPC that I want to use, not the other one, but this one. Fine. And you can create a load balancer internal to the VPC, which is also a use case. But right now we want to go outside and let people from outside access it. So what I'm basically doing through this configuration is opening up port number 80 and selecting some very specific subnets for it, which are, in my example, I already have a ton of subnets created with specific purpose in mind. And these are Elastic Load Balancer subnets for the region A, B, and C. Similarly, I have application subnets A, B, and C. And also, I have database subnets A, B, and C. These 3 database subnets. In addition to that, I also have a NAT subnet. And that's the entirety of my subnet collection right now in this particular VPC. And I have those CIDRs defined. And then subnet IDs are available. They are in a variety of zones. These are basically making sure that high availability is ensured. And so what I need to basically do is, as I create a load balancer, as I define the load balancer, I need to assign 2 subnets in different availability zones to provide higher availability for my load balancer, which means I need to pick the ELB-B and ELB-A subnets. So I'll do that, ELB A and ELB B. That's how I will go and identify those two subnets, and that's where I will basically put my, where did it go? There. So in my 3-tier architecture, 1, 2, 3, I have a database subnet, I have the application subnet, I have my elastic load balancer subnet, and here is where I'm creating an elastic load balancer. And by the way, I have ELB A and ELB B. I have app A and app B. I have DBA and DBB. So these two subnets for everything is allowing me to construct high availability as I create every component. What does that boil down to? As I create elastic load balancer, it's a service. So there is nothing much to do. It's a ready-made service. All I do is click configure and select these two subnets. And they in turn will have their own security group, which will be called the Elastic Load Balancer security group. And these guys on those two subnets, by the way, each of them are actually two subnets, A and B, A and B, A and B. So there are two redundant, and these guys will have a security group, Elastic Load Balancer security group. This guy will have a security group called Application Security Group. So we'll call it App SG, and these guys will have the database SG. And the security policy, or rather security group opening up, is what we will do, very, very focused. What we want to do is people should connect. So they will connect on port number 80 or 443. That's it. No other port for the people outside. So open these two ports for inbound access from here, and so that the load balancer service will become publicly accessible. That's where people will hit, and your DNS name will point to this service. That's one layer already done for us. It's a service. The other layer is where we will actually run our instances. We'll create our app machines here, and these guys will run your application. This application will open up security for only certain ports, like 80, for example. And access to this will be from source only if the source happens to be, and you can guess right now, we are not allowing public access, but only if the source is this guy. Only the load balancer has anything to talk to these machines. Nobody else. Nobody has any function in life to talk to my boxes except the load balancer. They can talk. So I'm basically opening up port number 80 for my application security group, so that anything on that subnet, or that security group, I should say, anything on that SG should be okay to access these boxes on that port. Nothing else. Not even the DB. I mean, no. If you happen to have a box here, they should not be allowed. Not in that direction. Similarly, the next security discussion would be for the DB itself. For the DB SG, you will have some DB boxes here. And in that scenario, you will open up port number 3306 for access from source that happens to be any box that belongs to here. If you are one of these guys, okay, come on in. But if you're ELB, no. If you're anybody else, no. Actually, this is allowed. This is allowed. It is itself. So itself is allowed. Anybody on any other subnet, even inside your own VPC, not allowed. Only those that need to have access will have access on this port, and only that port, nothing else. And that's how you open up security for database. Now, in certain clouds, you have this thing called database as a service, which means you don't have to worry about this thing. I'm sorry, but yeah, I understand some of your perspectives. But I'm saying that the idea is, why worry about maintaining your own database boxes when somebody can do it for you? So, for example, compose.io. Here is a service, production ready, cloud hosted, blah. Blah can be any of these databases. You pick your database you want, and it will run it for you. So you want a MySQL, it is not available. It's too bad. You want PostgreSQL, it is available. Take it. That's how it runs. If you want MySQL, you go to another location, such as this one. And they have a MySQL database service. And in fact, they have 5 more databases in addition to MySQL. I think maybe total 5. And those are RDS. Here you will find, if you get started, that you can use Aurora, which is a clone. It's not clone, it's a compatible to MySQL. Pretty much works like MySQL, but they claim it is 5 times the throughput and 10 times the capacity. Yeah, okay, I got it. Next, I don't care. I don't care because it's too big for me. So I go here, MySQL. Yes, select. And then I can get my MySQL deployed here. And I click that, and next step, and it will configure my database for me and do it in multiple availability zones, like I'm describing here. In A and B, it will do me in 2 zones and do a failover and everything else, and manage and backup and restore, and everything is taken care of. All I need to do is pay them like $15, $25, something like that, for a very small size database. So as the money grows, you can get a bigger box and bigger storage and bigger everything and bigger performance. But to start with, I think $15, $20 is the way to experiment with it, to just understand what the capabilities these things provide. And so that's another way to think about, is use the service on one end, run your app on multiple boxes, and then use a database service. Database as a service. Here your load balancer is also a service. That's one way to approach it. The other extreme approach is to not use any service, but instead create your own load balancer using HA proxy and put that in high availability mode, and then have it configured just like ELB would do. And then on the other end, in your multiple subnets, call it A and B for databases, you can run your own boxes with master and slave configuration or backup and restore and everything that you want. You can play with to your heart's content and run PostgreSQL or MySQL or any other database, including Oracle and Microsoft. All of that also work. Depends on what you want, but these guys are free and open source, so it doesn't cost you money as you experiment. It doesn't cost you too much money as you experiment. It still costs you for the infrastructure. But go ahead. Question.
Quick question. Yeah. So can you run a cluster configuration in the cloud? I mean, is that
Yes.
also possible?
Yes. So cloud is, to me, cloud is no different from a regular IT. It's no different. It's the same thing. It is the same thing. Pretty much everything you can think of in a data center that you have in your office, you can get in the cloud. Pretty much everything. And so don't think about cloud as any different animal. It's the same animal. It just lives away from you and somebody else owns it. And you can kill it because it is not a puppy. I'm just saying. So to summarize, I would like you to succeed with this one box deploy everything scenario. And those who have extended it already, awesome. Please do the other one, or at least discuss among yourself. You know who's doing what, so you can discuss with me as well in terms of expanding the idea and build up a functional kitchen that will actually do a 2-part deployment: app and DB, separate boxes. And once you have the separation of boxes, once you have the box separation done, put that in a Git repo in a kitchen and share with others so that they will know what you did. That will help everybody to understand and solidify what you have expanded from just one box contains all to splitting the work into two. That I think will be a good exercise. I'm leaving it as an exercise, and you're welcome to chat with me, ask questions, and things like that. Looks like Alex is typing, and I'm suspecting he's already done it. I don't know, but I have seen him doing amazing work. So that is awesome. Oh, yes.
I was just gonna add a gist, but I don't know. Whenever I guess we're done, I did have a couple questions about something the security group was.
Yes. So I welcome your questions. By the way, we are done, and I welcome your questions regarding security group and anything beyond that. So go ahead.
So yeah, I've been creating EC2 instances, and I've been using a specific subnet ID in order to associate the instance with, and it gets hung on SSHD, but it creates the instance though, so I know it has SSH access to the security group, but then it gets hung up on SSHD after creating the instance. I could show you if you want to see.
Oh, I noticed the same. I noticed the same thing.
So I mean, do you have to? I don't know. I could show you. Oh yeah,
yep. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. Go ahead. Let's see.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
I'm also having an issue trying to connect to DigitalOcean.
Yeah. So can I please ask you to show me the security groups in your AWS?
Yeah. So you could see me switching the screen like that, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So in AWS. Oh, let me create the instance real quick.
Yeah. I'm more interested in your security group settings in your EC2 console.
Yeah. So this is a security group.
Show me the inbound rules, please.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have your TCP open from everywhere. That is good. What about this 0 alpha Charlie? What is that? It is itself, right? It is itself. Okay. So this security group is called the default security group. It is.
Oh, so you're saying that's. So you're saying that might not be communicating something else over SSH?
Yeah.
I thought it was all SSH.
No. So let's understand that part. So it is talking to itself, which may not be open, right? It might look like all, but it is not all. So let us do that.
Ooh. Okay. I looked at the source code and it looked like it was making an SSH check. So
let's understand it. So show me the code that you're looking at. So I just want to understand what the error is now. So let's go look at the error, please.
So here's. I'll show that later. Oh, you want to look at it? It wasn't an error, so.
Oh, wherever you got stuck. So yeah, it may not be error. Wherever you got stuck. What is that point?
So. This is the gist I'm going to share. I just wrote a script that lists, creates, or destroys an instance. So I'll let this go while I post this little gist real quick.
Okay.
Oh. Okay, so yeah, it's creating right now.
So I would like to examine the security group associated with 11 Charlie Foxtrot.
Okay.
And you are missing one more thing, which is you did not get a public IP address, which is something Did you ask, or did you not ask for it, or did you explicitly hide it or something? Because it is not getting a public IP and it will get stuck.
Oh, so do you have to do that?
Yeah, in your command. So see, your command needs to be called out that I need to get a public IP. By default, it does not or may not give you. So I want to see the code. So it is not giving you a public IP there. I see a private IP right there, 10.0.0.156, but then I don't see a public request. So it may be a setting on your side which don't give me public IP by default or something. Is there such a thing? I don't know. You want to find out?
I don't know. Or is this handled in Knife?
No, in your configuration request. So also on EC2 console, somewhere it's
oh, it could. Oh, so that could be it.
Yeah, you're not getting a public handle.
Okay. So where does that get?
So try launching instance. Try launching instance manually, and you will see it. Begin launch manually, and you will see it pop up. And I'll post a gist for you that will illustrate those ideas. So hold on. I'll find the gist for you. But proceed through this. Maybe in the next configuration step, you will find it. Whether to allocate a public IP or not, go step by step. Don't jump to the blue button quite yet. So right here, auto assign disable. Right? See that the default setting is disable.
Oh, so this is So if I change this to enable it, that'll be the default then.
I think this is the setting you want to do in some code somewhere. So you want to explicitly ask. You want to explicitly ask for a public IP, and I will find out where to do that. Give me a second.
Maybe it's
Yeah, because you're not getting a public IP. That's the problem.
Yeah.
But if I want to create some boxes without the public IP, like let's say the database server that you were talking about in the earlier design, is it still possible to create within a subnet?
It is possible to create, but you cannot connect without a jump box. So you have to pass a jump box reference, and through the jump box, you have to pass a key to jump, and then it will go and connect and then do everything else.
I see.
But without a jump box in place, you cannot access it. If there's no public IP, you cannot go there. So there is one of these guys is going to be saying that, hey, give me a public IP. So auto assign public IP true or something like that.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
What does it say?
So this would be right here.
Oh, there, associate. So ask for it. Associate dash associate public IP. Ask for it by name, and it will give you.
So I gotta
Yeah, in the command, you edit that. So in the create step, ask for it by name.
I need to.
And by the way, while make it complete, and also ask for it by name, the VPC ID, the security group. Ask all these by name. You can go keep dash dash this dash dash that.
So I don't. There's none for VPC, but there is for subnet because I don't have a default. I don't have a default VPC, so I had to add.
What happened to your default? Did you kill it?
Yeah, a long time ago, but you can't recreate it. You have to ask.
Yeah, you have to ask for permission, and they'll do it for you. It takes a long time, and so that's a problem.
I asked. I requested it, but it's fine because I can still use this subnet. I've just figured that out.
Fair. That's the problem. Yeah, that's one of the things. Like at the beginning of the whole program, I was cautioning everybody: please do not delete your default VPC. You remember me saying that a long time ago?
Yeah.
I said, do not delete your.
You said it.
Yeah.
You said it a long time ago. I deleted it before you said
before
that.
I said that. I don't
Slow.
Long ago.
So Nilesh,
yes.
When we create the servers in DigitalOcean, we can pass a bootstrap command that makes it automatically load Chef. Is there a similar command we can pass in AWS?
It assumes that you want to bootstrap, so there is no need to pass it.
Okay.
So the slight differences in the way the two plugins are written. So both examples are available on the website somewhere. You probably saw that.
Yes, I don't doubt it.
All right, let's try this again.
Yeah.
So, I'll let it go. And then
you are expecting to receive a public IP, and let us see on the console in the browser, do you actually receive one? If you don't receive a public IP, you are screwed again.
Yeah, I'll wait till I do that to update my gist.
Okay.
It's just a nice little script, so you don't have to like.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, it's nice. Nice that you wrote it. I avoid writing just too much because then if you write everything in just, the whole thing will happen and people will struggle. What did you just do? And so people ask me the questions. What did you just do?
Yeah.
And so I don't want to have just, I want to have it like, okay, black and white, expand the whole thing, explain the
Oh, for the
controls, and then
class, yeah. But
exactly. I don't, my focus is class. My focus is not automation.
yeah, you could basically make it so, if each lesson, we just hit a button, go, but then nobody learns anything.
That's right. So that my purpose is not automating, but actually reversing the automation to help people understand how to automate.
It didn't say public.
Yeah. So go before you delete, just go to browser, check what it says. Did it issue a public? Go to your EC2 console and see whether the public IP is issued or not. And so, one way to handle this problem. Yes.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So wait for it. One way to handle this problem is, by the way, your other machines that are terminated, we don't know whether they got a public IP or not. One way to overcome this challenge that you're running into, Alex, is to go drop down in another region where I'm hoping you have not deleted your default VPC.
Default VPC.
Default VPC.
Well, no, you can
You can create a VPC, but you cannot create a default VPC.
Oh, I got you.
You can absolutely. So go to another region, say North California, somewhere else, or Australia, or some other place, and just see.
Oh, California.
VPC. Yeah.
I like California. I'm from
there. Okay. So click California, go to VPC, and find out if you have a default VPC, which is different from VPC. Not every VPC is default.
I did not know that, and now I do.
So
it's good to mess things up. But then you learn stuff.
Oh yes, I have did that. I've done that, like deleted all my VPC, like complete, like clean up, and then nothing works, and then I hit my head on the wall, and then you have a VPC there. I see it, but let us see if it is default, and it is default. So go use this region, and you're golden.
Yeah, but now I kind of want to figure out how to make this work.
Yeah, but now I was seeing exactly the same behavior. And all I did is I'm not, oh, there it goes. It did actually, you did a Control-C also. And what I found is the server was running. It did have a public IP. And I said, well, I'll figure this out later.
Yeah. So if there is no route for you to reach this one has the public IP, the 234, 242, whatever that was.
Yep.
This is a region.
Hey, so for those of you who are into automation, I would like to tell you one thing, that you don't have to use this knife command like I'm using. What you should use is, if you can please open a site, Alex, and a browser website, and search for BOTO, Python BOTO. That's the one I recommend that you use. That's the first link on GitHub. So Python Boto is the SDK, or you can call it whatever. So it's a collection of libraries to deal with clouds in Python language. So use that instead. For those who are into Ruby, open a new tab, please, and type fog.io.
Sorry.
New tab, fog.io. FOG.io.
Isn't that what they're using under the covers?
That's right.
Whenever you get an error, it says fog, yeah.
So fog is the underlying library that Ruby uses to create knife. So knife will use fog and all that. So if you want to go write a program or write some software, you are using fog directly. It's much better.
Ooh.
So write Ruby and fog. Write Python and Boto. Much better. You're much better off, much faster, as opposed to dealing with this knife command. You just go directly to the underlying libraries.
US-West Is that US-West 3? Is
West
that
1, US West 1. Northern California is US 1, US West 1.
Okay. All right. So
Cool. So I'm stopping the recording, and so I can pass process it and then pass it along to you guys. I'm stopping the recording right now.